Chapter 1. Su Fang failed to break through to the next realm. His meridians were twisted and deformed, and he was reduced to a cripple. He would never be able to cultivate again. However, he unexpectedly obtained a mysterious ancient mirror. In the depths of the ancient mirror, he met a powerful existence from a mysterious world, and they began to cultivate together. Cultivating the physical body, defying the heavens and changing one's fate. Touching the heavenly gate, vowing to become a cultivator. Watching the young Su Fang travel thousands of miles to find his father, step by step, he stood out among thousands of geniuses, fighting the heavens and defying the stars to become an unparalleled giant god. Chapter 2. The midsummer dusk was still hot, the moon was like a silver plate, and the sky was filled with shining stars. It still hasn't changed at all. In the family Su Martial Hall, a youth clenched his teeth and tried his best to climb up a 10-zhang tall vine pillar, but no matter how hard he tried, his feet were unable to leave the ground. Touching the Heaven's Gate, according to legend, was a way to test and recruit disciples in Tianmen province. This was a vine pillar made of vines, and it was only 10-zhang tall. It was rumored that the Heaven's Gate in Tianmen province was 100 zhang tall, and no one had ever been able to successfully climb to the top. Luckily, touching the Heaven's Gate, and relying on themselves to become a disciple of Tianmen province. According to the youth's age, climbing a few zhang should not be a problem, and it should be a piece of cake. I, Su Fang, do not believe in fate. The youth bowed again, his hands slightly trembling, and his 10 fingers tightly grasped the vine. When he used his strength, the muscles on his arms bulged like steamed buns, and even his small arms were bulging with muscles. Even so, after 10 breaths, not to mention climbing 3 feet, he could not even lift his body into the air. Poochie, suddenly, a laugh came from behind him. Sneaking around, get out here. The youth slowly turned around and stared in the direction of the gate, where it was pitch black. He saw 5 youths swaggering under the moonlight. It seemed that each and every one of them were young masters of the family Su, wearing brocade clothes and looking very rich. Among them was a fat youth with a big belly, saying that we sneaked around Su Fang. Do you think you are the genius seedling from half a year ago? That was before, now he is a trash that cannot practice martial art. Our family Su clearly states that only seedlings can enter the martial hall, and no one is allowed to enter without permission. But you sneaked in. Tomorrow I will definitely tell Uncle Yen. Another youth appeared to be very arrogant. I will once again come here with my head held high. The youth called Su Fang lowered his head and walked straight towards the gate. Trash like you still wants to practice martial arts, you can't even reach Chi Stage 1. If you have the ability, don't leave, let's spar. The youths chased after a few steps, full of ridicule and abuse. Su Fang clenched his fists and stopped. If it was before, he would definitely tell them to shut up. But now. You're looking for a beating, aren't you? In the past, you were mighty, but now you're just a dog in front of us. Furthermore, that useless father of yours lost our family Su's ancestral divine weapon. You should be expelled from the family and sold to the mines as a miner for the rest of your life. The chubby youth actually rolled up his sleeves and angrily stared at Su Fang. Su Xiaolong, you guys are quite energetic. Do you want to practice the horse stance for the whole morning tomorrow? Suddenly, a domineering voice came from outside the door. It was unknown when a middle-aged man had appeared. Uncle Yen, we were wrong. The fat youth immediately admitted his mistake and obediently left with the others. Su Fang came to the door and looked at the burly Uncle Yen. He lowered his head in shame. It's my fault. I shouldn't have come here. Uncle Yen appeared from the darkness. His steps were light as if he was weightless. Has your body not recovered yet? I don't feel any soreness, it's just that I can't exert any strength. At this point, Su Fang suddenly stared at Uncle Yen. Am I really not allowed to practice martial arts? It was as if he had asked this question countless times in his mind. I don't know either. For some reason, when Uncle Yen saw the youth's eager eyes, he didn't know how to answer. After a while, he opened his mouth. According to the martial arts passed down from Tianmen province, you failed to break through to the 6th layer of qi eating. All the meridians in your body have been seriously damaged. Many of your meridians have been twisted and deformed. Not only can you not exert any strength, but you also won't be able to use your qi in the future. If you can't absorb qi, you will never be able to become a cultivator. Then I worked hard for the past 6 years to start from the foundation and step by step stepped into the 1st layer. In 6 years, I practiced hard day and night regardless of the heat and heat. Finally, I reached the 5th layer of qi eating. I am the only person in the history of Tianzong City who didn't cultivate qi and only cultivated the physical body to the 5th layer. Was all of this in vain? Su Fang shook his head. Unknowingly, there was a tear on his cheek. Scenes of the past suddenly flooded into his mind, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Starting from the age of 9, 6 years of hard work, from morning to night, summer to winter, never stopping for a day. Finally, under the ridicule of countless people, he shook off his weak and sickly body and stepped into the 5th layer of qi eating. On the path of cultivation, the beginning is to cultivate both the inside and the outside. Cultivating the body externally and cultivating qi internally. The 10th layer of qi eating is a realm passed down from Tianmen province. Tianmen province is the closest cultivation place to Tianzong City. Rumor has it that the master of the Tianmen Gate has the ability to fly high in the sky and step on mountains and rivers. Becoming a cultivator is the dream of everyone in Tianzong City since birth. For Su Fang, as long as he can cultivate to the 4th layer of qi eating, he can become a family Su seedling. Then he can pass the test and step into Tianmen province to cultivate. In reality, he often works hard, but in the end he comes up empty-handed. When he was 13, after several years of hard work, he finally stepped into the 3rd layer of qi eating. But when he started to practice internal cultivation, he found that his meridians were naturally blocked and he couldn't use his qi. If he can't cultivate qi internally, he can't become a cultivator. And to change the meridians, there is only one way. Continue to persist in physical cultivation, reach the 6th layer of qi eating, and then enter Tianmen province to cultivate with the advantage of the physical body. Maybe he can transform the blocked meridians. Only cultivating the physical body, to cultivate the physical body to the 6th layer of qi eating is easier said than done. Even an adult can't only cultivate the physical body to enter the 6th layer. Holding this obsession, he finally stepped into the 5th layer of qi eating at the age of 15. At that time, he became the topic of everyone in Tianzong City, who didn't envy him because in the history of Tianzong City, there has never been a miner who stepped into the 5th layer of qi eating by cultivating the physical body. He began to attack the 6th layer of qi eating again, but failed. At that time, his body faced the backlash caused by the impact of the huge force. With a destructive force, the meridians of his whole body were injured, and some were even twisted. Overnight, he fell from heaven to hell. Failure to attack, not to mention cultivation, even surviving is difficult. Fortunately, he took a lot of superior spirit medicine in half a year. When he gradually recovered, he had to face the cold and cruel reality. He can't even carry a few dozen pounds of things. After walking for a while, he was out of breath. A cripple. He returned to the sickly him before he was 9 years old, destined to be a mortal for the rest of his life. And he also missed the assessment held by the messenger of Tianmen province 2 months ago. He has to wait for another 3 years. After 3 years, the new assessment will be held. I really can't practice martial arts? After a long time, Su Fang came back to his senses and looked at Uncle Yen again. Su Fang, martial arts is not the only way to live in life. Uncle Yen wanted to order Su Fang to leave, but he couldn't bear to say more. I heard that the ancient cultivators had a special method to cultivate the physical body, and divided the physical body into 4 realms: Sciention, Hotion, Mortal, and Great Perfection. Rumor has it that when the physical body reaches the Great Perfection realm, you can wash the marrow of the body and change your fate. This may be able to solve the problem of your blocked meridians, but after all, it is a legend and can't be taken seriously. Ancient physical body technique. Suddenly, Uncle Yan's casual words made him feel as if he had grasped at a life-saving straw. Uncle Yan looked at the erected vine pillar again, shook his head and sighed. Although Tianmen Province's triennial assessment has passed, if you want to enter Tianmen Province by touching the Heavenly Gate, it's not that I want to discourage you, but even an adult can't enter Tianmen Province's Heavenly Gate. Since the establishment of Tianmen Province until now, no one has succeeded. Go back. Seeing Su Fang's burning gaze, there was helplessness in his eyes. After a few words, he walked towards the inner hall. Answer, he got the answer. Without looking at the sacred place in his heart, Su Fang silently left. When he came to the street, although there were lights everywhere, Su Fang felt as if he was in the middle of winter. It was as if everyone was laughing at him. Yo, Su Fang. A surprised voice suddenly appeared in front of him. Su Yan, isn't this your family Su's former seedling, Su Fang? He's your cousin. Su Yan. Su Fang didn't care that someone recognized him, but the name Su Yan made him a little surprised. When he raised his head, he saw 3 elegant young men appearing in the middle of the street. This was because Su Yan was the son of the family Su's patriarch, and also Su Fang's cousin. Su Fang's father was the brother of the current family Su's patriarch. He was also a famous expert in Tianzong City. Unfortunately, 16 years ago, when Su Fang was about to be born, he was suddenly summoned by Tianmen Province and never came back alive. Among them, there was a handsome young man with a healthy physique, who was dressed in the same way as Su Fang. He sneered at Su Fang. This is indeed my cousin, our genius. Did you know that Miss Lu Lan is coming back to the city today, and wanted to take a look at her? The young man on the left sneered. Stop joking. Miss Lu Lan is our Tianzong City's #1 genius. 2 months ago, she was the first genius among us to pass the assessment. She came back this time because in a few days, the emissary from Tianmen Province will bring us to Tianmen Province to cultivate. Our great genius Su is already a cripple who can't practice martial arts. Su Yan, Li Yuandong, this person has already become a cripple. Instead of beating him up, why don't you think about how to get close to Miss Lu Lan? There is still hope for us to go to Tianmen Province in the future. Another young man was even colder as he forcefully pushed the 2 of them away. The 3 of them proudly walked forward. Looking at the 3 of them walking away in high spirits, Su Fang suddenly thought of the past. He was also like this. Lu Lan. How could Su Fang forget this name? She was the goddess in the hearts of all the young men in Tianzong City. She came from the biggest family in Tianzong City, and was very beautiful. She was also the most outstanding seedling of the Lu family since young. Now she had surpassed all her peers. She was aloof and untainted by the mortal world. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. He silently walked to the front of a medicine shop. When he walked into the medicine shop, he saw a white-haired hunchbacked old man sitting in front of a stone mill and grinding medicine. When he saw Su Fang, he immediately waved his hand. Good grandson! Grandfather, let me grind the medicine. It is getting cold at night. You should go and rest. Su Fang squeezed out a smile and started to pack his things. He moved the wooden frame at the door into the hall. That's good too. You should come into contact with more medicinal herbs now. Grandfather's medical skills will at least have a successor. As for practicing martial arts, don't think too much about it in the future. At that time, you will be able to bring glory to the family Su and grandfather. Grandfather is already very satisfied. Furthermore, you have also relied on your own hard work to prove yourself to everyone. Before grandfather left, he didn't forget to remind him carefully. No, I, Su Fong, can't just believe in fate. I won't be arranged by God. I want to practice martial arts. I want to find an ancient physical body cultivation technique. After that, I will go to Tianmen province by myself through painstaking cultivation. I want to enter Tianmen province openly through the touching heaven gate. I want to shut up all the people who laugh at me. For father, I must go to Tianmen province. I don't believe that father will die just like that. I want to bring father and the family's ancestral divine weapon, the falling moon blade, back. This way, cousin won't treat me as an outsider, and uncle won't alienate me. Su Fong gritted his teeth. He really wanted to vent the unhappiness in his heart. P.S. New book begins a new journey. Another magnificent journey against the heavens. 3 updates a day, 10,000 words. Author's words. I've started uploading my new book. I'm very excited. I have too much to say. Anyway, thank you, brothers, for accompanying me on this journey. Without you, perhaps I wouldn't be in this state. Chapter 3. Su Fong continued to tidy up the hall. After keeping most of the herbs, he sat down in front of the grindstone and struggled to push the grindstone. The grindstone was only about 20 kilograms, but it was always making things difficult for him. He continued to grind for a while without adding any herbs. He felt as though he had lost his soul and started to push the grindstone again without any expression in his eyes. Trash, you still want to enter Tianmen province? With his appearance, haha, a toad lusting after a swan's meat? It will never be his turn. Lu Lan has already become a disciple of Tianmen province. Su Fong, you better behave. In the future, this young master will take over the position of the family Su clan head. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for chasing you out of the family Su in the future. Su Fong didn't know how long he stayed there, but his mind was filled with the mocking laughter of Su Xiaolong, Su Yen, and the others. He couldn't get rid of it no matter how hard he tried. It felt as though a nightmare was pestering him and trying to pull him into hell. He had long forgotten that he was still pushing the grindstone. His finger had unknowingly approached the edge of the grindstone and coincidentally reached into the grindstone. Instantly, a heart-wrenching pain came from his finger. Blood gushed out from his finger like a pillar, and his mind was filled with the mocking voices of others. He didn't have any intention to stop the bleeding. When did the sky brighten up? A ray of light pierced his eyes, and he realized that the sky was already bright. He saw that there were still a lot of herbs around him that hadn't been tidied up. He casually picked up a pile of herbs and was about to place it on the wooden rack. Who knew that a purple light would faintly shine out from it? What was going on? Could it be that his eyesight was blurry, or was it because he had lost too much blood? After placing it on the wooden rack, that purple light also appeared in front of Su Fong as the herbs were spread out. He didn't care about it at first, but after seeing it, his eyes suddenly focused on the purple light. He hurriedly grabbed it with his right hand and saw that it was a piece of herb that hadn't been tidied up yet. After taking a closer look, the rotten wood was full of roots and looked a little like a hand. He also had some impression of this herb. It was collected from a hunter a month ago. This was just one of the herbs. He heard the hunter mention that it seemed to be found in the purple Aura mountain. He didn't have time to tidy it and placed it in the corner. Who knew that it would be exposed? Hula! He even wanted to show it to his grandfather. He had heard that some medicinal herbs would produce medicinal spirit. Could it be that he had received a big treasure this time? Who would have thought that a purple thread, or rather, a purple worm, would come out from the medicinal herbs? While Su Fong was not paying attention, it suddenly drilled into his right wrist and disappeared. The rotten wood medicinal herb in his right hand seemed to come to life. As the purple thread left, it floated into the air from Su Fong's hand. Could it be a ghost? The rotten wood medicinal ingredient suddenly flew out of his hand, scaring Su Fang so much that he staggered backwards, his heart cold. Crackle, the purple glow of the purple hand rotten wood floating in the air was disappearing. Some ash-like substances fell off layer by layer. After a while, Su Fang really believed that he had encountered a ghost. Because a purple and bloody right hand appeared in front of him, dripping with fresh blood. It was just a medicinal herb. Why was there a right hand hidden inside? Su Fang took a few more steps back and immediately wanted to wake his grandfather up. However, the bloody hand suddenly turned into ashes and fell from the sky, leaving only some dust on the ground. Could it be that I encountered a ghost? Why did the bloody hand suddenly disappear? He hurriedly rubbed his eyes and widened them to look around. Still, there was only some dust left. The rotten wood medicinal herb had disappeared in an unbelievable manner. How could a perfectly good medicinal herb be burned to ashes in a big fire? Su Fang squatted down curiously, wanting to see what was going on. Who would have thought that the pool of blood that belonged to him under the millstone would strangely begin to bubble? This was even more frightening than before. He had to tell his grandfather. Just as he got up, the pool of blood suddenly flew up. Moreover, he was unable to control his right hand. It turned into a blood snake-like shadow and rushed into his palm. Dream, I must be dreaming. Su Fang felt that he had lost feeling in his right arm. However, he found that his injured finger was no longer bleeding. It was as if this hand no longer belonged to him. Creak. Perhaps because he was nervous, the 5 fingers of his right hand clenched into a fist. Then, there was the sound of bones rubbing together. Hearing the sound and staring at his right hand, Su Fang suddenly revealed a suspicious smile. Why does my right hand suddenly have an illusion of power exploding? At this moment, he seemed to have forgotten about the bloody hand and the purple light line that drilled into his wrist. Instead, he came in front of the millstone and grabbed it with his right hand. With a frown, he took advantage of the situation and stood up, shouting loudly. The millstone was inconceivably lifted by him. Moreover, he felt that the millstone was weightless, as light as a feather. This seems to have returned to the state of eating chi level 5. What's going on? Just now, he felt that his right hand was filled with power. He thought it was an illusion, but now, he used his right hand to easily lift the stone plate. It was as if he had the divine power of the outer Tao at that time. He did not believe it. Previously, he felt that his whole body was tired, weak, and sore. How come his right arm and body seemed to be filled with power in a short while? He went to the medicine cabinet again. There was a large medicine trough in the corner. It was also used to grind medicinal powder. However, this was too cumbersome. His grandfather was old, so it had been left here. It was estimated to be about 150 caddies. He personally moved it here when he reached eating chi level 3. Try it if. Su Fang did not dare to think about it. For some reason, his body now had an inexplicable power, and he could feel that it was as if he had reached eating chi level 5. Half bending his body, he grabbed the corner with both hands and slowly exerted force. My body is not sore or numb. He was overjoyed. He continued to exert force. His body was full of muscles. In the end, he easily moved the medicine trough. However, he was shedding tears. He gritted his teeth, hoping that he would not cry because he was too excited. His 10 fingers exerted force again. All the muscles and veins in his body were tight. This was the feeling. Only a martial artist would have this kind of power. Although I don't know what's going on. Why did my body suddenly return to normal? Su Fang immediately picked up the water bag, opened the door and closed it. He looked at the street. I have to hurry up and go to the old place to cultivate. Su Xiaolong, Su Yen, soon I will step into the martial hall Lulan again. There will be a day when I will also become a cultivator of Tianmen province and bring honor to my family Su. Holding back his anger, he disappeared into the street. There was a purple chi mountain in the south of Tianzong City. It was rumored that a long time ago, purple chi rose from this mountain, and that was how it got its name. However, whether it was true or not, no one verified it. Deep in the mountain, on an open space next to a waterfall, Su Fang waved his arms. His movements were agile, and he moved like a rabbit. He was a completely different person from the sickly him from the day before. Under the cold air, his upper body was bare. His thighs and waist were all muscles. He suddenly quickened his pace, and came under a towering tree. His 10 fingers suddenly formed eagle claws. He stared at the tree trunk. It turned out that there were a lot of tear marks on it. These were the marks left by Su Fang when he practiced martial arts every day a few years ago. Wind Eagle 7 Styles. Swish, 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 swish. His hands immediately grabbed the marks on the tree as fast as lightning. With a sudden sound, he used his hands to break the palm-sized wood. Then, he did it again and again. Soon, many pieces of wood were scattered around. Su Fang had a smile on his face. He liked this feeling. In the state of practicing martial arts, he could find confidence and forget everything. His mind was filled with all kinds of martial arts moves. Su Fang only stopped when it was close to noon. He felt that this was the first time in half a year that he had practiced to his heart's content. He kept shouting in his heart, "Wash my face and rest for a while before continuing to practice other martial arts." Covered in sweat and dust, Su Fang came to the small lake in front of the waterfall. He squatted down and dipped his head into the water. Comfortable. After a few rounds, his whole body became cold. The scorching light shone down, leaving mottled and distorted spots of light on the grass. After wiping off the water droplets, Su Fang suddenly looked at his right hand. It was trembling slightly. He found that there seemed to be an inexplicable force in the small lake that was attracting his right hand closer. "It can't be that strange, right?" Su Fang was startled. He suddenly realized that he had experienced too many inconceivable things today. First, it was the purple thread that entered his wrist. Then, it was the strange bloody hand. Now, could it be? He curiously dipped his right hand into the water. His hand immediately calmed down. When he took it out of the water again, his right hand began to tremble uncontrollably. It seems that there is a mystery in this small lake. He frowned and stared at the rippling water surface. His right hand seemed to want to dip into the water. Splash! A circle of white waves suddenly appeared on the surface of the lake. Su Fang disappeared. Why is the water not cold at all? Instead, it is very hot. He decided to go down and take a look. After somersaulting under the water, Su Fang suddenly felt that his body was abnormally comfortable. He did not know how much strength he gained. At the same time, he found that the water temperature was above normal. There was something wrong with the water temperature. What was even stranger was that the lake water could increase the body's strength. Strange. He had been hiding here to practice martial arts for a few years. He had also taken a bath in the lake before. However, he did not have this strange feeling. It seems that there really is a secret under the lake. He quickly dived into the lake. When he was about 3 zhang deep, his right hand began to tremble even more. There is a red light. It seems that my right hand is having this inexplicable reaction because of it. Seeing a red light the size of a palm at the bottom of the lake, Su Fang felt that the red light was not ordinary. He quickly held his breath and went to the red light. When he took a closer look, the red light was not very strong. Part of it was buried in the sand. He carefully looked at the red light again. There seemed to be a red mirror inside. It can't be that strange, right? What if it is something harmful? He hesitated. At this moment, Su Fang was really afraid. His lungs were about to explode. No matter what, he had to take the mirror first. There doesn't seem to be anything strange. He took the mirror out of the sand with his right hand and took a quick look. He had to go up first. Su Fong began to swim towards the surface of the water faster and faster. Gulp, when he was 2 meters away from the water, Su Fong could not help but take a breath. Suddenly, a figure jumped into the lake. Su Fong was so scared that he swallowed a mouthful of water and choked uncomfortably. Who would come here? He was puzzled. He quickly looked up and saw 2 long white legs swaying above him. The legs were slender and long, white and tender. When he looked up again, a graceful back appeared. There was also the perfect curve of a butt. Gulp, he choked on water again. This time, his nose was bleeding. The inexperienced Su Fong was not yet an adult, but he could not stand the sight of such a naked body in front of him. There is something strange about the mirror. However, Su Fong felt his left hand tremble slightly. He immediately took a look. It turned out that the blood from his nose had landed on the ancient mirror. The mirror seemed to have a life of its own and absorbed the blood from his nose. Unique treasure. Although Su Fong did not have such an experience, he had heard many stories. In the stories, the treasures used by the immortals could transform into various forms. They seemed to have life like humans. The author's words, "A peerless treasure is about to appear. A treasure that is different from the rest and can change the future." If you want to know what is different about the treasure, we will continue tomorrow. Chapter 4. Whoosh! Before Su Fong could understand what was going on, the ancient mirror flew into his lower abdomen and disappeared. Not good, I can't hold it in anymore. When people were in a hurry, they would often do things that even they couldn't understand. As a matter of fact, Su Fong had turned into a beast. His hands actually grabbed that wonderful body's waist, then her chest, and then came out of the water. Crazy bastard! His lungs were about to explode, but what was even more unbearable was that a cold spiritual light wrapped around Su Fong from the water. Then, with a boom, he was thrown to the ground. Su Fong was in so much pain that he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Scream again! In a flash, a cold voice suddenly scolded, and a sharp immortal sword was pressed against Su Fong's neck. Su Fong was still spitting water and struggling, but in the end, he became like a wooden man and didn't dare to move. When he saw the woman in front of him, his nose started to bleed again because she was completely naked. "Big sister, you're so beautiful." However, Su Fong only had eyes for the woman's gorgeous appearance. The woman used her left hand to press on a ghastly wound on her thigh. It was about a foot long. Su Fong was wholeheartedly thinking about a fairy descending to the mortal world. His right hand seemed to have grabbed something, and when he turned his head, he saw that it was a corpse. Right. The corpse of a man whose heart had been pierced by a sharp weapon, and an incomparably handsome and noble man at that. It seemed that he was a big shot. The woman's icy eyes were filled with coldness, but her beautiful face was completely bloodless. I didn't expect that my pure body would be seen so clearly by an ordinary ant. Su Fong suddenly became unprecedentedly quiet. It seemed that he had seen something he shouldn't have. If he had known earlier, he would have suffocated to death in the water. It would have been better than being silenced. It seemed that the woman and the man were fighting and silencing each other. Since he had unintentionally seen this scene, he would definitely be silenced as well. He hurriedly explained, "I didn't do it on purpose." Whoosh! With a flash of spiritual light, a jade finger pointed at Su Fong's chest. "Explain. This is your fate. If you spread this, the entire country of Zhao will be shaken." The woman had already put on her clothes. She went to one side of the cliff and used her palm to open a gap. She then moved the man's corpse into the gap, sprinkled some powder, and sealed the gap tightly. Su Fong was dumbstruck. "Brat, don't blame me. Don't worry, you won't feel any pain in the next few breaths of time. With this corpse-dissolving powder, you'll completely disappear from this world and merge with the soil." The mysterious woman whose beauty could cause the downfall of a nation suddenly flashed a peerless smile like a beautiful swan. I, Su Fong, have never believed in fate. I just died once, I can't die a second time. Su Fong looked at the powder on his body, and felt a cold current surging into his heart and all his organs. He felt that the god of death was about to arrive. He could only force himself to calm down. Buzz, just as his entire body became cold, a buzzing sound suddenly came from his lower abdomen. He could clearly feel something moving under his abdomen, and then all the cold energy in his body disappeared into his abdomen. Zzz. At the same time, the powder of the corpse dissolving powder began to corrode his skin. With the cold energy gone, Su Fong suddenly regained his strength. He quickly took off his clothes and used the lake water to wash away the powder until his skin no longer rotted and emitted white smoke. His body went limp and sat down on the grass. He had heard that the world of cultivators was filled with deception and killing, but he still didn't believe it. Now that he had personally experienced it, he was deeply moved. No, I have to leave this place quickly. What if that woman comes back? Su Fong was in a hurry to leave, but his attention was attracted by a pile of rubble. He quickly went to the bottom of the cliff and used all his strength to move the rubble away. His hands were raw, and he immediately heard a rotting sound. He endured the stench and dragged the corpse out. Cultivators always leave magic treasures on their bodies. That woman left in such a hurry that she didn't have time to take away all the treasures. In the world of cultivators, cultivators needed to obtain resources for their cultivation. Many of them were obtained from corpses. Furthermore, his family Su was not even a third-rate family. Even normal pills were luxuries. This corpse was not simple at all. If it had treasures, it would definitely not be simple. After tossing and turning, Su Fong suddenly found a finger-long golden scroll in the scroll of the corpse. For the man to hide it so secretively, it must be something extraordinary. Half of the corpse had already rotted. Enduring the stench of flesh and blood falling off, he stuffed the corpse back in and sealed it with rubble. He then turned around and ran back to the top of the mountain. Half an hour later, he returned to the drugstore. Arriving at the bedroom on the second floor, Su Fong lay down and hurriedly forced himself to fall asleep. However, in just a short while, he fiercely turned over like a carp and sat on the edge of the bed. He hurriedly took out the small golden scroll and carefully read it. Treasure. There must be a treasure. Otherwise, the man wouldn't have hidden it under the plate, and even the woman couldn't find it. The man died under the woman's sword. It was most likely because of a treasure. It was most likely this small scroll in his hand. I can't touch it. I absolutely can't touch it. An impulsive thought made him want to open the golden scroll. It was said that impulsiveness was the devil. That was true. At the very least, he couldn't open it right now. Perhaps the woman had already finished killing the man and returned to her normal appearance. She might still be secretly searching for this scroll. If she released her aura, then not only would he die, but even his grandfather would die. Even after putting away the scroll, he still didn't want to sleep. His heart was itching. He wanted to find the ancient mirror that had saved his life. Heavenly treasures. 100% of heavenly treasures would automatically recognize an owner. Just this point alone was enough to prove it. But when he looked at his bare stomach, he didn't see any ancient mirror. I haven't slept all night. I'm too sleepy. Even if something big happens, I still need to sleep. Feeling that he didn't have the slightest bit of strength left, he gradually fell asleep. Huff, huff, huff. It felt like a dream. Su Fong was half awake and half asleep. Su Fong felt like he had lost his center of gravity. He also strangely saw a red light in front of him. Where is this? Could it be that I'm dreaming? Am I dreaming? Su Fong slowly opened his eyes. He also found himself standing in a red world. He wanted to leave, but he couldn't. He didn't know why, but he couldn't go forward or backward. He felt like he was in a frozen space. Junior, you really came quickly. I was just thinking about how to lure you here. Suddenly, a faint and weak voice rang out, causing Su Fang's heart to jump. Someone was here. That weak voice seemed to belong to a woman. It seemed to be able to watch Su Fang's every move. Don't be afraid. Even if I wanted to deal with you, I wouldn't be able to for now. A ghost? A female ghost? Looks like I really did run into a ghost. Su Fang was still scared. He was clearly still thinking about that terrifying mysterious woman. The other side angrily said, "What female ghost? I'm a living immortal. I'm currently inside that red ancient mirror that you merged with. Wake up. You should also thank me." "Why do I have to thank you in that ancient mirror?" "You really should thank me. If I hadn't exhausted my core energy and used a great divine ability to suck away the cold chi in your body, you would have already died under that power that tore apart the cold chi. So the one who saved me was the mirror." "No, it was Senior. You really are clever." "That's right, it was me. Fortunately, my divine abilities are unrivaled, and my magic power is boundless. Otherwise, you would have already become a corpse. Although this magic treasure is extraordinary, it still wouldn't have been able to save you. Thank you, Senior, for saving my life." "Senior, are you the ancient mirror's spirit?" In just a few short sentences, Su Fang had solved many of his doubts. He hastily bowed. That weak voice recovered a bit. It still sounded very young. "I'm not some artifact spirit. It's just that my Yuan spirit just happened to be inside the ancient mirror. Actually, I'm the same. Not long ago, I obtained a black ancient mirror and accidentally entered the magic treasure's space. Because I'm an almighty expert, I discovered many secrets inside the black ancient mirror. I just happened to sense your existence through the ancient mirror, and when I discovered that you were in a life and death situation, I released the magical seal within the magic treasure to resolve your crisis. Senior also obtained an ancient mirror. I thought Senior was inside the magic treasure. That's not right. If we weren't in the same magic treasure space, how would I have talked to Senior? How would Senior be able to see me?" A new problem arose. Good question, good question. At first, when I saw that the black ancient mirror had such an inexplicable ability, I also had many questions like you. But later, I kept controlling the ancient mirror and obtained some answers. The black ancient mirror I obtained should be the same magic treasure as the one you obtained. In other words, the ancient mirror has two sides. You just happened to obtain the red side, and I obtained the black side. Because they're the same magic treasure, I was able to sense your existence. How strange. How could there be such a treasure in heaven and earth? Su Fang wasn't a cultivator, but he had heard all sorts of strange stories about the world of cultivators. He had also read some books, so he more or less knew about the strange things that happened in the world of cultivators. The woman's voice trembled for a moment before she said, "I can't answer that question. The ancient mirror is too strange. However, I was able to decipher its name. It's called the Primeval Sage Realm. The red side you obtained contains the power of Yang, while the black side I obtained contains the power of Yin. The reason I explained so much to you, and even saved you, is because this ancient mirror requires two people to cultivate the energy arts it contains. Do you understand now?" Before Su Fang could say anything, the woman continued, "My cultivation base is far beyond your imagination. That's why I can enter the central spacetime of the primeval sage realm. You can't. Although my divine abilities are invincible, I can't use the ancient mirror. That's because I need you to cultivate with me. In other words, dual cultivation. That's the only way I can use the power of the primeval sage realm." Dual cultivation? No way. Based on the woman's voice, she seemed to be in her 30s. Dual cultivation? That would be a huge loss for him. If it was the mysterious woman from the Divine Mountain sect, then it would be a good idea. Furthermore, he hadn't grown up yet. "Little brat, how old are you? Don't think too much. I have a supreme sage body. Even if I wanted to dual cultivate, it wouldn't be your turn. We're just dual cultivating. You cultivate the 9 yang 9 transformations of the primeval yang mirror, and I cultivate the 9 yin 9 transformations of the primeval yin mirror. In the future, when we meet and fuse with our magical treasures, we'll both obtain unimaginable power. The woman was filled with pressure. Your nascent divinity is very weak. You can't enter the depths of the primeval sage realm. Fortunately, this ancient mirror is very strange. I can see everything inside. But, Su Fang suddenly stuttered. The other party said angrily, "You're a man. How can you be more wishy-washy than a woman?" Su Fang said helplessly, "My meridians are naturally blocked. I can't cultivate." "Is that so? You and I are separated by thousands of rivers and mountains. If I were next to you, I could instantly rebuild your fleshly body. So what if your meridians are blocked? Even if you don't have a dantian, I can rebuild it for you." It was said that distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. It seemed that the mysterious woman couldn't help Su Fang solve the problem of his blocked meridians. Chapter 5. Su Fang suddenly thought of something, and his eyes released an incomparably hot light. Junior heard from an elder in the clan that if there was an ancient body tempering technique, I would be able to cleanse my body and defy the heavens to change my fate once I reach the great perfection stage. That's right, how could I have forgotten about this? I always thought that I could change your problem, but I didn't think of this. The mysterious voice continued, "Body tempering is an ancient cultivation method. In the past, humans would first cultivate their bodies, and only after reaching the great perfection realm would they start to cultivate their qi. After the continuous cultivation of the later generations, the ancient cultivation method was eliminated. Do you know why it was eliminated? It should be very difficult to cultivate. You are very smart. That's indeed the case. It doesn't feel good. How about this? I happen to have an ancient body tempering technique, and I can pass it to you immediately." Really? There was always a way out. Who knew that there would be hope at the end of the road? Su Fang was actually so lucky. First, he obtained an ancient mirror. Now, he could obtain the body tempering technique that he wanted the most. Could it be that the heavens had opened their eyes? Only when you become a cultivator can you cultivate the great divine power contained in the ancient mirror with me. Helping you is also helping myself. My primordial spirit is also very tired. I hope that you can cultivate your body to the great perfection realm as soon as possible. By then, your primordial spirit will also be stronger than it is now. When I see you again, I will pass the 9 yang 9 transformations cultivation method to you. I hope you can do it." The woman sounded very expectant and tired. Her voice completely disappeared. At the same time, Su Fang felt that his mind was swept by a breeze. It seemed that something had entered his mind. "My head hurts." In the blink of an eye, Su Fang focused his vision again and found that he was sitting on the bed again. Did I have a dream just now? In the dream, he talked to the female ghost. "Kid, the ancient body tempering technique that I am passing to you is called the 100 Orifices bloodline. Study it slowly yourself." Just as he was doubting, the female ghost's hoarse voice suddenly sounded in his mind. He almost jumped off the bed because of this. Fortunately, he knew that he was not dreaming now. All of these experiences were real because there were many more words in his mind, densely packed. It was indeed an ancient body tempering technique called the 100 Orifices bloodline. "Fang your uncle is here. Quickly come down and greet your uncle." A voice from downstairs immediately woke Su Fang from his shock. "Uncle is here." The head of family Su came to his house, but Su Fang knew that he was here to visit his grandfather. As for him, he had long become a jinx that everyone hated. He didn't have time to check the cultivation method of the 100 Apertures bloodline in detail, so he went to the courtyard on the first floor. He immediately saw Su Yen, who still appeared to be superior to others. Beside him sat a middle-aged man, who was sitting on a stone bench with his grandfather. This was the family Su's clan leader, Su Ting. He had once cultivated in Tianmen province, as well as Su Fang's father. Many scars could be seen on his dark skin. "Father, cousin is really good at sleeping." When Su Yan saw Su Fang walking down the stairs, he deliberately smiled coldly. Su Fang lowered his head and bowed in front of Su Ting. "Uncle, I heard that you went to the martial hall yesterday." He didn't expect Su Ting to know about this. He said sternly, "Fang it's not that I don't want you to practice martial arts or stop you from going to Tianmen province. Everyone has to act according to their ability. Sometimes reality is very cruel for us. We can't achieve our goals just by working hard. Otherwise, your uncle wouldn't be willing to leave Tianmen province and become a real cultivator. But I don't want to give up like this. Father passed away more than 10 years ago without any news. As his son, I can't just wait like this." At this moment, Su Fang spoke his true thoughts. Find his father, even if it's just a skeleton. He also wants his father's soul to return to his hometown and rest in peace. If he can't do this, then he, Su Fang, will be ashamed of his mother's last words. Grandfather stood up and wiped Su Fang's tears. "Good grandson, it's been hard on you." "Su Yan, did you hear that?" Su Ting suddenly looked at the arrogant Su Yan beside him. "Father, don't worry. I'll go to Tianmen province in 3 days. I'll definitely help cousin do this." Su Yan patted his chest. Su Ting immediately patted Su Fang's shoulder. It seems that as a dignified clan leader, he also deeply understood that blood is thicker than water. "Fang did you hear that? Your father and I are brothers. We used to cultivate together in Tianmen province. We went through fire and water together. You're like my son. In the future, learn medicine from your grandfather. Uncle will train you to be the best doctor in Tianzong City. Why don't you agree?" Grandfather hurriedly persuaded. He had no other choice. Even if he didn't mean what he said, he still had to give an explanation. "Fang will work hard. But I still need 1 or 2 years to recuperate. My body still can't use any strength." 1 or 2 years he wasn't recuperating. He was clearly using this time to cultivate his bloodline and reach the perfection of his physical body that even the ancients couldn't achieve. "Changing my fate. My life is in my own hands." 3 days later, at noon, come to the martial hall to send everyone off. Don't forget. Su Ting left with Su Yan. Although uncle did it for my own good, they never really believed in me. Mother, I won't let you die with regret. I must bring father back and bury him with you. Su Fang was shouting in his heart. Who would understand him? No one. He finally understood that only he could control his own fate. Fang where are you going? After a while, Su Fang found some dry food and some daily necessities, as well as a bow and a sword. Grandfather hurriedly came to ask, afraid that Su Fang would do something stupid that would worry people. I'm going up the mountain to sweep mother's grave. Grandfather, I'll be back in 3 days. In the future, I'll often accompany mother on the mountain. Anyway, I have nothing to do. It's better to have some peace and quiet on the mountain. Grandfather knows that you like peace and quiet. Then you have to be careful. When you leave the city, buy more dry food and bring more clothes. It's still a little cold in the mountains at night. Don't rush when you're cleaning the grave. Okay. Receiving grandfather's care, Su Fang carried his bag and left the medicine shop. From afar, he could still see grandfather watching him at the door, unwilling to leave. Purple Chi Mountain in the forest very close to Tianzong City, on a flat mountainside, there was an ancient temple erected abruptly. There were hundreds of graves around it. This was the family Su cemetery. In front of a double-headed grave made of green bricks, Su Fang was mixing weeds. Looking at the other graves, they were also covered with weeds and even some wild vines. It seemed that no one had come to clean the cemetery for at least a year. The tombstone in front of the double-headed grave was carefully cleaned by Su Fong. It emitted some green light under the sun. His parents were buried in this double-headed grave. One of them was his mother's coffin, while the other one was a cenotaph. Because the family Su people could not find his father's skeleton, they used his father's clothes and weapons to bury him in the coffin. Inadvertently, Su Fong wiped his tears and strode into the cemetery. The cemetery covered an area of 1 mu. It was divided into the main hall and the left and right ear halls. It had been a long time since he had been here. There were fallen leaves and spider webs everywhere. Some sacrificial items were also scattered everywhere. Su Fong entered the left ear hall. There was a stone bed there for the gravekeeper to rest. Unfortunately, no one was willing to be a gravekeeper in the past few years. Instead, it became Su Fong's resting place from time to time. He put down his bag and simply tidied it up. Then, he took out a quilt and a leather cushion from a wooden box. He made the bed and cleaned up the spider webs around it. Since that purple light entered my right hand, I don't know why, but all my strength has been gathered in my right hand. After a busy day, he finally cleaned up the cemetery. He did not feel tired at all. Especially when he found that his right hand, from his wrist to his arm, was filled with a mysterious power. Because of this, it seemed that all his strength had been gathered in his right hand. No matter what that purple light was, it gave me strength. Su Fong did not think too much about it. No matter how hard he thought, he could not figure it out. Looking at the neat and clean cemetery, his heart suddenly became clear. When dusk came, he looked at the large cemetery in front of him. I still need 2 more days to tidy up all the graves. Returning to the cemetery, he closed the door and lit the oil lamp. I can already master the wind eagle 7 forms. I need to practice a fist technique or a palm technique to complement the strength of my right hand. That's right, absolute wind palm. This martial art is domineering, and the moves are simple. He was going to start practicing martial arts. This was his real purpose for coming up the mountain. Here, no one would laugh at him, stop him, or disturb him. He could be completely focused. Absolute wind palm's mental cultivation method is very simple. Part of it requires chi cultivation. Although my body has strength, my meridians are still blocked. I can only practice strong palm strength. Coming to the center, he spread out his body. The sound of bones rubbing against each other came from his body. It was as if his muscles were tearing. This was the strength of the body. It was the body that Su Fong used to have. Bang! His feet suddenly moved inward 8 steps. After taking 3 steps, his body arched even more. His arms suddenly danced. His right arm pulsed with his steps like a snake swaying. With a palm strike, it was as if even the air was shattered. Absolute wind palm was a martial art that could shatter even the wind. Su Fong had been practicing hard since he was young. He had mastered most of the martial arts in his family Su. He had also practiced absolute wind palm in the past. Therefore, when he used it again, it was not strange at all. Instead, it was smooth and powerful. Late at night, he returned to his bed and meditated. He began to study the ancient body cultivation method, 100 Apertures Bloodline. The mysterious woman in the ancient mirror was really powerful. The words she sent to Su Fong could not be erased from his mind. There were about thousands of words, divided into 4 parts: Xiantian, Hotian, Mortal, and Great Perfection. Each level had a corresponding cultivation method. It's incredible. 100 Apertures Bloodline mainly cultivates the blood in the body. Step by step, it starts from ordinary blood to blood chi and essence chi. Finally, it controls the essence blood to forcefully break through the meridians of the whole body. Finally, it reaches the great perfection, purification of the body. The Xiantian realm cultivates the essence blood. The Hotian realm cultivates the essence blood into chi. The mortal realm cultivates the reverse blood to break through the meridians. The Great Perfection Realm cultivates the living blood to break through the meridians. If he did not read it, he would have thought that it would not be that difficult. After carefully reading the cultivation method of each level, Su Fang instantly understood how difficult it was to cultivate 100 Apertures bloodline. He thought that the outer path of body cultivation was to cultivate strength, martial arts, and strengthen the body. But now, it seemed that the 4 major realms of the body were not easy to cultivate. They were also unfathomable. I'll study the blood qi condensation essence for the next few days. After cleaning up the cemetery, I'll start the ancient body cultivation. He secretly made up his mind. Because this was his last chance. Author's words, Jiu Zhen will have some miracles in the beginning. After all, he has not adjusted his condition yet. Chapter 6. On the mountain at night, the wind was howling, as if a large number of beasts were hibernating around the tomb. A pile of firewood was burning in the stone house. Su Fang was sitting cross-legged on the stone bed, pondering the blood qi condensation, the first realm of the 100 Apertures bloodline. Blood qi condensation, according to Su Fang's understanding in the past few hours, it was to cultivate the blood in the body through the cultivation of the body, purify the impurities in the blood, and cultivate a purer blood qi. How did people cultivate their own blood? There were only 2 ways. One was to cultivate the body to the point where it could be controlled at will, so that it could form innate internal strength in the body. The other way was to use other methods, such as the ancient martial arts practitioners who cultivated their own blood through the cruel method of blood exchange. Su Fang could only choose the first way. The second way was beyond his control. If the blood exchange failed, what would he do if all the blood in his body flowed out? Fortunately, the Book of Blood Qi Condensation mentioned an extraordinary supplementary cultivation method. 100 acupoints finger technique. There were countless acupoints in the human body, and they were distributed in the 7 meridians and 8 meridians, as well as the qi circulation. 100 acupoints finger technique was a martial art that corresponded to the 100 Apertures bloodline. It used acupoints to control the blood in the meridians in the body, and then combined with the cultivation of the body. I didn't expect the human body to have so many acupoints. Fortunately, there was a detailed introduction of their positions, otherwise I would have to spend time to understand them first. At dawn, Su Fang suddenly felt a sense of emptiness, as if with the arrival of a new day, his cultivation path had entered a new journey. After eating some dry food and wild fruits, he began to clean the cemetery. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye in this state. At dawn, a figure rushed into Tianzong City with large strides. It was Su Fang, who was panting. He had run more than 10 kilometers on the mountain road. After absorbing the purple light in my right hand, I thought my whole body had returned to normal. I didn't expect that other parts of my body would still feel sore after intense exercise. When he came to the streets controlled by the family Su, he wiped his sweat and saw the familiar family Su Martial Hall. At this time, there were hundreds of people gathered inside and outside the Martial Hall. Su Fang's arrival was not noticed by anyone. When he came to the door, the first thing he saw was the 10-feet-tall vine pillar. Matian Gate. This was the representative of Tianmen Province, and Tianmen Province controlled an unlimited amount of territory. Any family or city had to listen to its orders, and every power had built this kind of rattan pillar to symbolize their submission to Tianmen Province. Rumor has it that after the birth of Tianmen Province, no one has ever been able to ascend the gate of heaven. I have already missed the triennial assessment of Tianmen Province. If I want to enter Tianmen Province to cultivate in a short period of time, the only way is to pass the gate of heaven. Their eyes were filled with reverence as they stared at the rattan pillar erected in the middle of the martial hall. The gate of heaven, the gate of heaven. Although Su Fang didn't know what the heaven-touching gate meant to Tianmen Province, He secretly vowed that he, Su Fang, would ascend the heaven-touching gate and prove himself to everyone once again. Everyone, quickly take a look. Su Kong, Su Yueyun, Su Yen, these juniors are not inferior to us in the past. This time, our family Su has so many seedlings entering Tianmen province. There will definitely be people who will make contributions in Tianmen province. At that time, our family Su's status will definitely be in Tianzong City and will slowly catch up to the Liu family. I heard that the Liu family has 20 seedlings entering Tianmen province. If we want to catch up to the Liu family, our family Su will probably need more talents to emerge. When they arrived at the central martial hall, most of the family Su's people were discussing the 6 energetic youths in front of them. Su Fang stood in the crowd, as if everyone else had disappeared at this moment and turned into an illusion. In his eyes, there was only Su Yen and the other 5 youths wearing red clothes. This was a scene that had appeared in his mind all the time for more than 10 years. Unfortunately, he couldn't find a place that belonged to him in reality. Su Ting and more than 10 middle-aged men walked out, and the martial hall suddenly became silent. Everyone, let's not waste any more time. We should go to the city gate and wait for the Tianmen province's messenger. If we're even half a minute late, I'm afraid that our family Su will be disrespectful, Su Ting slowly said to the crowd. Then, the crowd began to leave the martial hall. Only Su Fang silently looked at the backs of Su Yen and the others, and his heart felt very uncomfortable. If I knew that I would be so disappointed, I wouldn't have come. Out of sight, out of mind. He rubbed the corner of his eyes and looked around. There was no one else. Hee, Su Fang, it wasn't easy to catch a trash like you today. Could it be that you've been hiding in your shell for the past few days and don't dare to come out to meet people? Unexpectedly, just as Su Fang was about to walk out of the martial hall, 3 youths suddenly appeared. The leader was Su Xiaolong, who almost taught Su Fang a lesson last time. He had a big belly, and regardless of size or strength, he was stronger than Su Fang. He immediately blocked the door with the other 2 youths. Last time, because of you, Uncle Yen punished me for 3 hours on the second day. My knees are swollen from kneeling. What do you want to do? Su Fang took 3 steps back. Su Xiaolong smiled evilly. Why can't I accept it? If it wasn't for you, I would have been punished. Since we're brothers, don't be polite. Beat him until he's looking for his teeth on the ground. In an instant, the 2 youths rushed forward, and actually used a series of overbearing and powerful fist techniques, rolling up gusts of wind. If he was hit with Su Fang's body, he wouldn't be able to survive. Don't hit the vital part. Hit his legs, hit his feet, hit his eyes until they become panda eyes. Only then will he know how powerful I am in the future. Su Xiaolong put his hands on his waist. Wind Eagle 7 styles, locking claw. The 2 youths' powerful fists were about to drown Su Fang. Who would have thought that Su Fang would suddenly bend his body like a cheetah and flashed under the arms of the 2 youths. In a flash, the claw power condensed from his left and right hands hit the thighs of the 2 youths. Ao, they didn't expect that in just one exchange, Su Fang's claw power hit the 2 youths, causing them to limp and fall to the ground. They screamed like pigs being slaughtered. Goddamn Su Fang. The 2 youths were in so much pain that they couldn't stand up. Su Xiaolong, it's your turn. Suddenly turning around, Su Fangdao walked towards Su Xiaolong. How do you have the strength? Su Xiaolong, who had his hands on his waist a second ago, was completely shocked at this moment. Su Fang was about to attack. Trash, you open your mouth and close it. Your parents didn't teach you well. Today, I'll teach you manners on behalf of your family. I'm at the 3rd level of chi eating. I can cultivate 3 layers of energy wave. Don't come over. Be careful of my 3 layers of energy wave. I'll shock you to death. Su Xiaolong couldn't help but retreat. He seemed to feel afraid. He was afraid that Su Fang, who had reached the 5th level of chi eating, would appear again. 5th level of Qi eating, that was an existence that could cultivate 5 layers of energy waves. It would be easy to deal with a small turtle like him. 3 layers of energy waves, I think you're the trash. You cultivated with me for a few years and only reached the 3rd level of Qi eating. Look at Su Yan, he's now at the 5th level of Qi eating. Which of the other seedlings of the same period hasn't surpassed you? You still want to wait 3 years before passing the exam to enter Tianmen province? Dream on. Su Feng, I'm going to tear you apart. He didn't expect that the meaty Su Xiaolong would also have a powerful moment. With a few hissing sounds, an imposing aura burst out from his body after he got angry. There were a total of 3 layers of imposing aura, which looked like 3 layers of energy waves rising. God-vanquishing fist. Su Xiaolong really wanted to kill Su Feng. Su Xiaolong's aura was sucked in by his 5 fingers. As his 5 fingers condensed into a fist imprint aura rushed out with him. Every step he took covered a distance of 1 zhang. It was as if a giant was furious as he punched towards Su Feng. I want you to know that even if I fail to reach the 6th level, I still have the strength to defeat you. In the face of such an astonishing attack, Su Feng actually threw up his right arm. He also used the god-subduing fist, but there was no imposing aura. However, in his right arm, a huge force suddenly burst out. Peng Wan was a cripple who couldn't cultivate, the other was a martial artist who had reached the 3rd level of Qi eating and 3 layers of energy waves. As a result, Su Feng's fist was blown away with an unstoppable force. At the same time, with a bang, his whole body was also lifted up by Su Feng's huge force and fell on the stone floor. Ao, slaughtering a pig. This time it was really slaughtering a pig. Su Xiaolong's but landed on the ground. His big butt looked like it was going to explode as he curled up and howled. Don't provoke me in the future. I don't have as much free time as you guys. You guys should also properly cultivate. Su Fengdao walked out of the martial hall, as if his former high-spirited self had returned. Murder! Su Feng killed someone. Su Xiaolong's painful cries came from the martial hall. In a short while, Su Feng arrived at the city gates. As soon as he arrived, he was attracted by a few figures. They were several men wearing armor. Their eyes were filled with spiritual light, and even though there was no wind, one could tell at a glance that they didn't belong to the mortal world. Tianmen province emissary, they were also truly powerful cultivators. Su Feng arrived at the family Su camp. He saw Su Yan and the others, as well as all the seedlings of Tianzong City's clans. There were nearly 100 people gathered in the center. One of the clans was very close to the Tianmen province emissary. The emissary was practically surrounded by that clan. The 6 clans, it was said that the number 1 clan in Tianzong City had over 100 people cultivating in Tianmen province. This meant that they could dominate Tianzong City, and no other clan could shake their position. I didn't expect Lu Lan from the Lu clan to become a little beauty at the age of 15. I'm afraid that she will stay in Tianmen province for her entire life. With such talent, she will definitely become a true immortal in the future. It's a pity that in this generation of my family Su, there isn't a single seedling that can compare to her elegance. Otherwise, my family Su and the Lu clan would have a marriage alliance. Then, my family Su's position in Tianzong City would be guaranteed, and we wouldn't be threatened by other clans. Among the family Su group, there were many people discussing in private. Lu Lan. Su Feng also saw the lone seedling in the center, the young lady dressed in blue. She was the object of adoration of all the youths in Tianzong City. Farewell, emissary. At this moment, all the higher-ups of the clans bowed to the black-armored emissaries under the leadership of the patriarchs. Rise. One of the black-armored emissaries waved his hand, and a black flag actually released a distorted spiritual light that was dozens of meters wide. It dragged dozens of seedlings and flew out of Tianzong City with a whoosh. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the clouds like the disappearing morning sun. Immortal! It's really an immortal's ability. Everyone present couldn't regain their senses for a long time. Mother, it won't be long before I enter Tianmen Prefecture to cultivate. I will also become a true cultivator. Su Fang silently walked out of the city gates with a burning dream in his heart. He was silent and dejected. As for those clans, they were still there and refused to disperse. Purple Chi Mountain Su Fang came to the cemetery again and squatted in front of his parents' grave. His eyes were slightly moist. Father, Mother, from today onwards, I swear that I will leave this place and go to Tianmen Province within 3 years. I will also become a cultivator of Tianmen Province. After a moment of silence, Su Fang suddenly stood up. Then, he walked towards the tomb. Chapter 7. After returning to the temple, Su Fang took some rations, a water bag and a sword, and ran towards the top of Purple Cloud Mountain. After an hour, he appeared at the bottom of a cliff. He had come here to practice martial arts before. There were many huge rocks scattered below, and the surroundings were also covered with weed. There was an empty space in the middle of the rocks, enough for practicing martial arts. After putting down the things, he adjusted his breathing. 100 acupoints finger arts combined with blood chi condensation is mainly to cultivate part of the body, using the finger arts to seal most of the blood vessels in the body. If I practice my hands, I will seal some of the acupoints outside of the hands and start cultivating one by one. When I reach the peak of the Xiantian realm, it will be easier to cultivate together. After thinking about the profound meaning of the Xiantian realm and combining it with the 100 acupoints finger arts, his mind became very clear. Arriving in front of a horizontal rock, Su Fang raised 2 of his fingers and continuously pressed 10 times on his thighs and lower abdomen. Each finger followed the description of the acupoints in the 100 acupoints finger art. In a split second, he felt that his legs were slightly numb, as if he was about to lose his senses. He could clearly feel that the blood flow between his legs and his upper body was completely cut off. His legs were even more numb, and some of his blood vessels began to swell. He could clearly see fresh blood. Peng Peng looking at the horizontal rock in front of him, he first used his right leg to sweep the rock, followed by his left leg. After 2 sweeps, and with normal strength, he felt that his legs were about to break. It was as if the pain could not spread out, because both his legs were numb. This was only considered a labor pain, a partial labor pain. 100 acupoints finger arts is indeed amazing. So it first numbs my body, and then when I practice, I will not feel any pain. Even if there is pain, it is just labor pain and will disappear in a while. As expected, in less than 5 breaths, the pain in his legs disappeared. Peng Peng next, he began to endure the labor pain, sweeping his right leg against the rock 10 times. His right leg was in unbearable pain, and after a while, the pain disappeared, but Su Fang found that the skin on his leg was broken, and the wound was gradually bleeding. He did not care about this, as long as his leg was not broken. His right leg landed on the ground and his hands pressed against the rock. He raised his left leg and began to hit the rock again and again. After an entire morning, he finally felt hungry. He was hungry and thirsty, and needed to rest and eat something. When both of his legs were on the ground, he suddenly felt that they were no longer his legs. He could not feel anything at all. When he looked again, not only were most of the skin on his legs broken, but they were also bruised. This was caused by the lack of blood circulation. Although he didn't feel any pain, if this continued, there was a possibility that his legs would be crippled. He immediately lifted his finger and tapped on his lower abdomen, unlocking the sealed acupoint. Ah! As the last finger technique was executed, the pain that came from his legs made Su Fang let out a heart-wrenching cry. His body also lost balance because of the pain in his legs, causing him to fall to the ground. She curled up her body and wrapped her arms around her legs. Tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Su Fong looked at the sky and the soaring eagle. He tried his best not to scream, but the feeling in his legs was as if his bones were breaking and his muscles were being torn apart. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. A gust of wind blew in the surroundings, sweeping up the fallen leaves. It was as if the heavens were sympathizing with Su Fong. Because of the pain, he bit his lips and dug his fingers into his calves. When he looked at his legs again, he found that his legs were swollen. It was as if flames were burning inside. He endured until dusk. When dusk came, he finally felt a little better. He was dizzy from hunger. He crawled to the bundle, picked up the dry food and wolfed it down. At this time, his legs no longer had that kind of pain, as if there was no feeling. This was the numbness from the pain, and also because Su Fong's consciousness was blurred. After eating his fill, he leaned against the rock and fell asleep. But soon, he helplessly woke up because his legs felt as if they were on fire. Fortunately, it was no longer painful, and the swelling had also subsided. I have to go back and get some medicine for external injuries. He slowly stood up and limped into the forest under the moonlight. He returned to the tomb after an hour and hurriedly applied medicine to his legs. He felt much better and went back to bed. After a while, he fell asleep. The next day, Su Fong only woke up after the sun had risen. When he looked at his legs again, they were much better. There was only a slight pain. After eating, he went back to the bottom of the cliff. This time, he still cultivated his legs. After using the 100 acupuncture points technique, all the pain in his legs disappeared. He knew that this was only temporary. When the cultivation ended, it would be the beginning of a life worse than death. Bang bang, he still kicked the rock. Today, Su Fong was not in a hurry. He knew that he could only persevere if he progressed slowly. If he did not care about the consequences, he would only lose his legs. At noon, when he unsealed the acupuncture points, an indescribable pain came from his legs again. Fortunately, he was lying on the ground this time and applied medicine to his legs again. This time, his legs were not as swollen as yesterday. In this case, after eating the dry food, he continued to cultivate. This time, he cultivated the ankles, sides, and hind legs of his legs. Because he did not use as much strength as yesterday, he unsealed the acupuncture points at night and rested for a while. Then, he could stand up. Su Fong used such a heaven-defying physical cultivation method to cultivate his body for half a month. My legs still hurt, but they are not broken or swollen. I should go down the mountain and prepare food. Otherwise, I will not be able to survive without food. He changed into another set of clothes and looked at his legs. He felt that there were scars everywhere. Moreover, his legs were bruised and purple. He could not let his grandfather see this. Otherwise, he would definitely stop him. Although his legs were no longer bleeding and broken, when he walked, the muscles in his legs would twitch. He still needed to be supported to walk normally. After leaving Tianzong City for less than a month, he felt that this place was a little strange. The people here were still living as usual, but for some reason, Su Fong felt that he did not belong here. Grandfather! When he returned to the medicine shop, he saw his grandfather, who was pale and old, filling medicine for someone. Fong-er! When his grandfather saw Su Fong, he immediately came to care about Su Fong. When he saw that Su Fong was fine and even stronger, he was no longer worried. Su Fong went back to the back room to prepare. He also hired a carriage and brought a lot of clothes, various kinds of medicinal powder, dry food, and various kinds of cured meat. He also prepared a lot. It was enough to fill up a carriage. After resting for a day, Su Fong said goodbye to his grandfather. When his grandfather saw that Su Fong had prepared so many things, he was very relieved. At least he could recuperate on the mountain. Su Fang specially bought a large vat and hired some coachmen before leaving Tianzong City. When he arrived at Ziki Mountain, he asked the coachman to move the things to the tomb. Many people knew about the family Su tomb. The coachman thought that Su Fang was the tomb keeper and did not ask much. Su Fang also asked these people to go up the mountain once a month to help him collect some daily necessities. The family Su was a big family in Tianzong City, so these coachmen naturally did not neglect them. In the afternoon, Su Fang personally built a stove in the stone house. Then, he placed the large vat, which was more than a meter tall, firmly on the stove to ensure that it could hold 250 kilograms of food. Then, he fetched some water and filled half the vat with water. Then, he poured a few packets of herbs and medicinal powder into the vat. Then, he lit a fire and put some black charcoal into the vat. When all this was done, it was already night. When the temperature of the water was suitable, he took out some charcoal, took off his clothes, and put it into the vat. Soak in the bath. Soaking one's body in precious medicinal herbs was a treatment that only the seedlings of large clans could enjoy. Su Fang had been weak and sickly since he was young. If it weren't for his grandfather protecting him in this way, he probably wouldn't have lived to this day. Soon, Su Fang fell asleep comfortably. At dawn, Su Fang had never felt so comfortable before. When he left the vat, the color of his legs had returned to normal, and there was no soreness at all. This was the place where people who practiced martial arts were ordinary. Carrying the dry food, he went to the bottom of the cliff again. Today, he began a new practice, which was to cultivate his arms. After sealing the acupoints on his arms, he immediately used the God-vanquishing fist. The God-vanquishing fist was a tyrannical and purely offensive fist technique. When Su Fang used it, he moved like a rabbit and his strength was also normal. After hitting the rock, although his arms were very painful, at least it was not so painful that he wished he was dead. He gritted his teeth and persevered. At noon, he knew that the moment of unbearable pain was about to begin. Enduring the black and blue bruises on his arms, he returned to the tomb, took off his clothes, and entered the vat. Then, he unsealed the acupoints on his shoulders. A heart-wrenching scream echoed in the tomb. It did not disperse for a long time. Su Fang's face was blood-red, and he was in so much pain that he even squeezed out tears. His arms were in pain again, and he felt like they were being burned. He wished that someone could cut off his arms immediately. After cutting them off, he would be free. Fortunately, the medicinal liquid was effective. This time, it was not dusk yet. After a few hours, the pain disappeared, and his arms were not swollen. Why don't I go and practice for a few more hours? He could have had a good rest, and he should have rested for a night. However, he put on his clothes and left the tomb. He returned to the cliff and began to practice the God-vanquishing fist again. At night, he returned to the vat. The first time he unsealed his acupoints, it was very painful, but after a while, because of the medicinal liquid, his body was relaxed, and he unknowingly fell asleep. The next morning, he continued to practice his arms. From his wrists to his arms, to his palms, back of his hands and fingers, he practiced all kinds of martial arts one by one. Again and again. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Unexpectedly, my legs are full of scars, and now my hands are the same. 1 month. He practiced the 100 acupoints finger technique, and cultivated his body. In the blink of an eye, the month passed. Su Fang clearly showed his changes. His legs always had an explosive force, and his arms seemed to be able to lift a few hundred jin. And this was just the beginning. He still wanted to increase the difficulty of his practice. In the previous month, he only practiced the 100 acupoints finger technique with ordinary strength to achieve the goal of refining his body. But this month, he wanted to use the strength of martial arts to cultivate his body with the 100 acupoints finger technique. Moreover, He was cultivating both his hands and feet at the same time. Using the 100 acupoints finger technique, he sealed the meridians and acupoints of his hands and feet. His hands and feet immediately became numb, and then he punched and kicked the big rock with his muscles. He saw with his own eyes that the blood vessels in his hands and legs were swelling. As he continued to practice, these blood vessels were about to explode. Because the acupoints were sealed, the blood could not flow, and his body was striking the big rock with astonishing strength, causing his muscles and tendons to be on the verge of breaking. Pa 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 bang bang bang. The pain continued to appear as his body struck the rock. In the past month, he had already gotten used to this feeling, so he persisted and cultivated for an entire day. On the way back, when it was dark, he gnawed on dry rations while supporting himself against a tree, limping back to the tomb. At this time, his hands and arms were swollen beyond recognition. Moreover, there were patches of dark red and purple, making him look like a corpse. When he entered the vat and unsealed his acupoints, he screamed again. Fortunately, the skin on his hands and legs was no longer broken, because there were too many scars. For Su Fang, this night was destined to be difficult to sleep. Chapter 8. 2 months later. It was as if autumn had arrived. Withered trees and fallen leaves could be seen everywhere. Bang, bang, bang. A whirlpool of air was formed in the middle of the gravel. Su Fang used his fists, arms, legs, and calves to hit the boulder with great force. It was not an ordinary force, but the force of a warrior. Every time he hit the boulder, some particles would fall from the boulder. These particles were gravel. They were crushed by Su Fang's great force. I have officially stepped into the Xiantian realm and become an ancient body refiner. Now that another month has passed, my body does not feel much pain. It seems that I have reached the peak of the Xiantian realm. 4 months. In the blink of an eye, Su Fang had been in the mountains for 4 months. The first 2 months were like hell to him. But now, not only were his hands full of scars, but he did not feel much pain when he hit the boulder with great force. In the past 4 months, he had made a 1-foot-deep hole in the boulder, and there was a layer of fine sand and gravel on the ground below. This was the result of his hard work in training his body. Comparing it with the 100 apertures bloodline technique, he estimated that he had not only officially stepped into the Xiantian realm, but also reached the peak of the Xiantian realm. Soon, after a period of hard work, he would be able to cultivate the blood qi condensation technique, and then condense the blood qi and enter the second ancient body refiner realm, the acquired realm. My legs and hands are almost done. I can feel the flow of most of the blood in my body. I have to cultivate my waist. After that, I can reach the peak of the Xiantian realm. He stopped cultivating and began to find a way to cultivate his waist. His waist was not easy to cultivate because it could not attack, unlike his hands and feet. Got it. He began to pack his things and quickly went into the forest. Tomb temple. He carried pieces of tree trunks and went to the side of the stone house to build a wooden frame. After a busy day, he finally finished building the wooden frame. It was 2 feet high. He then tied 2 pieces of tree trunks, each weighing 100 pounds, to the wooden frame on both sides with iron chains. Then, the 2 pieces of logs were suspended in the air. After thinking for a while, he used a new chain to bind the 2 floating logs. He stood in the middle of the 2 wooden frames and took off his shirt. His chest and back faced the 2 logs. This time, he didn't use the 100 acupoints finger art because his physical body had already reached the innate realm. He could directly withstand the pain and impact brought by the physical body. He slowly gritted his teeth and looked at the log in front of him. He pulled the chain with both hands. Clang! Crash! The chain trembled, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard. As the 2 hands pulled the chain over, the floating log slammed into his chest. Bang! How frightening was the impact of a log weighing more than 50 kilograms? Su Fang was forced to take a step back. There was a blood-red mark as thick as a water bucket on his chest, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Because of the tremendous impact, his body was heavily injured. A single strike was already so shocking. Next, he pulled on the chain again. Bang! The log hit his chest with great force. The log did not have any life. Su Fang held his breath and hit it back and forth 10 times. Then, he used both hands to pull on the chain behind him. When he pulled on the chain, the log hit his back with a bang, and his back immediately became bruised. This time, Su Fang could not bear it. Blood gushed out from the corner of his mouth. However, he did not hesitate and continued to hit his back with the log. After a while, he hit it 10 times. He continued to pull on the chain in front of him with both hands and started hitting his chest again. After a few hours, he had hit it at least 100 times. His chest and back were bruised. He knew that he could not continue like this. Otherwise, it would not be his flesh that was injured, but his internal organs. He immediately entered the medicine vat. His body felt like it was about to fall apart. Fortunately, the temperature of the water could relieve his fatigue. He had already adapted to this kind of pain and tried his best to relax his body. In the latter half of the night, Su Fang could no longer feel the pain. His body seemed to have lost weight, but from time to time, he would feel waves of stabbing pain. He still fell asleep. When he woke up, he did not know whether it was noon or afternoon. He ate a good meal and continued to cultivate. He still hit his chest and back with the log. Mortals would not be able to withstand this level of cultivation. They would probably be shaken to death after a few hits. However, Su Fang was not a mortal. He had reached the 5th layer of qi eating and possessed the astonishing strength of the 5th layer wave. At that time, his body had already reached the height of an ordinary adult. In addition, a few months ago, his right hand had absorbed the strange purple light. His body had miraculously recovered its strength, and his body was able to surpass that of a mortal again. Even so, such a heaven-defying ancient method of body cultivation was still like suffering in hell for him. Fortunately, his condition would get better every day he persevered with this method. As long as he adapted, any pain would gradually become unimportant. "Young master, are you there? We are here to deliver your things according to the schedule again." A few days later. It was probably almost noon. Su Fang was still hitting his body with the log. Suddenly, someone shouted in the ancestral hall. It was the coachman, who had come to deliver things as usual. After putting on his clothes, Su Fang opened the door and immediately saw 3 coachmen waiting in the open space. Su Fang nodded politely. "Please put it in the main hall." The coachman replied enthusiastically, "No problem. Young master has always taken care of our business like this." After putting down the things, the coachman, who was about to leave, suddenly came to Su Fang. "Young master, do you know that your family Su has been in trouble recently?" "I don't know about the trouble. Please tell me in detail." "Family Su has been in trouble." He had not gone down the mountain for more than a month, so he did not know about the family's situation. Moreover, the family Su was a big family in Tianzong City. How could they cause trouble? A dark-skinned middle-aged man immediately said, "I heard that it was because of the seedlings of your family Su and the Wu family who were cultivating in Tianmen province. I heard that one of the Wu family's seedlings was killed by your family Su in Tianmen province. That's why the Wu family is asking your family Su for an explanation." "Then how far has the relationship between the two families developed?" "Fire and water are incompatible. There will be friction from time to time in the territories of the two families. However, with the Lu family overseeing the overall situation, the two families should not fight. That's for sure. The Wu family's people must not die in vain. The Wu family's seedlings have died. How big of a blow is that? Naturally, they will find trouble with the family Su." The other 2 coachmen also shouted a few times. "Young master, We will go down the mountain now. We will be back on time next month." After the coachman finished speaking, the few of them entered the forest from the cemetery. The death of the Wu family's seedlings is a big deal. A seedling may become the pillar of the family Su in the future. The Wu family will definitely not let my family Su go. Oh no. If the Wu family causes trouble, then my grandfather, Su Fong, suddenly became worried about his grandfather. Without further ado, he put on a set of clean clothes, extinguished the charcoal fire on the stove, and immediately ran out of the tomb. It only took 1 hour. He returned to Tianzong City. As expected, once he returned to the streets controlled by the family Su, he saw people from the family Su patrolling the streets in 2s and 3s. On the other side, people from the Wu family would appear from time to time. Judging from this situation, they were indeed incompatible. He felt that something big would happen sooner or later. "Su Fong, why are you still running around? If you meet the Wu family on the way and suffer a loss, no one will take care of you." When Su Fong returned to the family Su's territory, he happened to meet the patrolling experts from the family Su. They naturally recognized Su Fong and did not hold back, scolding Su Fong. This was also for the good of Su Fong. In this situation, any insignificant friction could lead to a fight between the two families. In the history of Tianzong City, too many families were exterminated because of this. Medicine shop. When Su Fong arrived at the door, he saw a few repair marks on the wall. His heart immediately hung in his throat. When he entered the medicine shop and saw that his grandfather was treating patients, he was relieved. After the patient left, Su Fong hurriedly asked, "Grandfather, it's good that you are fine. Did the Wu family do this?" In the past few days, the Wu family suddenly came to cause trouble. Many shops along the street were smashed by them. The medicine shop was fine. They were stopped in time by your uncle and his men. Grandfather sighed as he packed up the herbs. "Now, how are the two families going to deal with each other? I think they are at daggers drawn everywhere. The Wu family's overall strength is about the same as ours. If they really fight, both sides will suffer." 2 days ago, the Wu family wanted to ask for compensation. They seemed to want 1 street as compensation or the deed to 500 mu of land. 1 street and 500 mu of land. What a huge demand! The family Su was a powerful family in Tianzong City. However, they only controlled a dozen or so streets. The Wu family wanted an entire street. They were clearly taking advantage of the situation to seize the family Su's power. "Fong the conflict between us and the Wu family is not something that can be resolved in a day or 2. In the future, you should stay in the cemetery and go down the mountain less. Come back when this storm is over," grandfather advised him earnestly. After that, he took out a few medicine books. These are the medical treasures that the previous generations of the family Su painstakingly left behind. Take a look at them when you have nothing to do. Grandfather knows that you are smart and have a good memory. You also like to deal with herbs since you were young. Go and rest. Okay, I will take a good look at them. He did not know why. At this moment, looking at his grandfather's wrinkled face and his kind eyes, Su Fong suddenly felt like giving up on practicing martial arts and starting to accompany his grandfather to study medicine every day. He felt the love from his grandfather. The power of this love made him forget everything. He only wanted to accompany his grandfather. Perhaps Su Fong had really grown up. This was the first time he felt this way. No. He suddenly thought of the rumors that his clansmen talked about behind his back, especially about his father. He could not accept that in the future, when something happened to the family Su, big or small, his father would be blamed for it. They would blame him for losing the ancestral artifact and causing the family Su to fall. He also could not bear the thought of his mother, who died of depression because she missed him too much. When he saw the cenotaph and thought that his mother was still waiting for his father's return, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. "Grandfather, I will try to go down the mountain less in the future. I will soak in the medicine vat when I have nothing to do. I believe that my body will recover soon." Su Fang replied. Grandfather went to work happily. Su Fang thought that he had deceived the person who loved him the most. He felt bad and sour in his heart. So he took some good herbs and quietly left the medicine shop. After taking a few steps away from the medicine shop, Su Fang began to cry. He could not stop the tears from flowing down. He did not want to let his grandfather down. He wanted to accompany his grandfather and become a doctor in the future. He could live a good life for the rest of his life. But he could not do this. He could not forget his mother lying alone in the coffin. When she closed her eyes, she was talking about his father. Su Fang had never cried like this in his entire life. The moment he left Tianzong City, he took out a dagger, stretched out his left arm, and cut 3 wounds on his forearm. Blood gushed out. The 3 wounds looked like blood, but Su Fang did not feel any pain. Because the pain in his heart was far greater than the pain caused by the wounds. P.S. It's the 3rd day of the new book. I'm still wondering if Yi Yun has found Wan Hai in the unknown world. Chapter 9. 3 years. I only need 3 years. Grandpa, if I can't change my fate and reach the great circle of the fleshly body, then I'll give up on cultivating. Mother, 3 years. If I can't succeed in 3 years, then I'm sorry. I'll stay here with you forever, watching over you, Father. 3 deep bloodstains were Su Fang's vow. If he couldn't reach the great circle of the fleshly body within 3 years, he would have to stay by his grandfather's side. As for his mother's last wish, he can only give it up. Shouldn't he cherish the living more? Back in the tomb temple, Su Fang didn't rest for a moment. He continued to beat his chest and back with 100-pound round wood. Some new medicinal materials were added to the medicine vat. The more precipitated the potion, the more amazing the effect will be. After a day of hard cultivation, he entered the medicine vat and continued to soak. In a daze, he seemed to have a dream. In the dream, a man in a purple robe always appeared in front of him. He had a pair of bloody hands which seemed to be summoning him. When he woke up from the dream, he realized that it was a dream. After dawn, he persisted in hard cultivation again. About 10 days later, my legs, hands, and body are almost cultivated. According to the description of the innate realm, I should be able to start condensing blood essence and break through the acquired realm. At this time, the hard cultivation came to an end. Su Fang looked at his arms, legs, and chest again. They were covered with thick flesh calluses. The 3 bloodstains on his left arm also left 3 scars that can't be erased. Seeing these 3 scars, Su Fang always became strong in an instant when he was helpless, lonely, and unable to persist. He continued to persist in hard cultivation. Finally, there was a result. Through his understanding of the 100 apertures bloodline technique, he has now reached the peak of the innate realm. He can start the last step, blood essence. Before cultivating the 100 apertures bloodline, Su Fang's body was still in the state of impact caused by the 6th stage of the Qi-eating realm. At this time, every part of his body seems to have power. This is the innate internal strength. Even if the human body doesn't cultivate Qi, through the cultivation of the body will produce a kind of Qi called internal strength. In the eyes of the ancient body refining cultivators, this is the innate internal strength, which represents reaching the peak of the innate realm. Returning to the medicinal vat, he wanted to use the medicinal power to slowly control his inner strength and begin to control his body. He wanted to use the muscle strength that he had painstakingly cultivated to control all the blood. He gradually emptied his mind, and emptied it again and again. After an unknown number of hours, Su Fang gradually felt that his body was weightless and formless under the effects of the medicine. There was only the medicine and the internal strength in his body. Gradually, He used this feeling and the muscle strength brought about by his bitter training to control the medicinal properties and inner strength. If it was a normal body cultivator, they could use their meridians to guide their qi. However, Su Fang's situation was special. His meridians were naturally blocked. Coupled with his failure to break through to the next realm, his meridians were twisted and deformed, causing his inner strength to be unable to circulate according to his meridians. Therefore, he could only train his body and use his strong and sensitive muscles to control the medicinal properties and inner strength. This kind of control was like threading a needle. It was a delicate job that required slow work. Gradually, Su Fang felt that he was beginning to control part of the medicinal properties and inner strength. Then, the two merged. Su Fang began to activate the muscles in his body. Using the sensitive muscles that he had cultivated as his meridians and channels, he began to let his inner strength slowly extend from the muscle layer to the other parts of his body. The difficulty of cultivating the 100 Apertures bloodline is far beyond my imagination. On the second day, Su Fang was still unable to spread his inner strength to every corner of his body. Difficult, too difficult. Of course, if his meridians were comfortable, it would be much easier. He could only stop and make some bacon and dry food to replenish his strength. Then, he entered the medicinal vat to continue cultivating. At dusk, he suddenly gained something. When all the muscles in his body could control his inner strength and let it slowly flow through his body, he began to use his inner strength to absorb the blood in his meridians and bones according to the blood qi condensation technique. The blood in his body began to move towards his dantian. It was very slow, but fortunately, he could still control it. His dantian seemed to have absorbed all of Su Fang's blood essence. Then, it began to move faster and faster. Su Fang even heard the sound of blood flowing and rubbing against each other. Su Fang felt very uncomfortable, but during this process, he found that some dark red blood stains were gushing out of his skin. It seems that I have succeeded. These are the impurities in the body, such as the impurities from the blood, muscles, and meridians. As the essence qi continues to condense, the impurities will be expelled. Compared to the 100 Apertures bloodline technique, Su Fang was so excited that he almost jumped out of the medicinal vat. This meant that he had succeeded. He had successfully condensed a higher level of essence qi. Then, this higher level energy would spread to all parts of his body, forcing the impurities and low-level energy out of his body. Stench from the dark red blood stains came, a stench that made Su Fang almost vomit. He immediately wiped most of the blood stains with water, and the rest was diluted by the medicinal properties in the medicinal vat. He took the opportunity to eat something to replenish his strength. It would take some time for the blood qi condensation to be completed, so he was mentally prepared. The essence qi in his dantian was getting more and more, and the xiantian internal strength was getting purer and purer. He was confident that he would enter the acquired realm soon. Once he entered the acquired realm, he would be able to use the xiantian internal strength that he had painstakingly condensed in the xiantian realm and integrate it into his attack. Condensing for several days in the afternoon of this day, Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes. The condensed blood and the pure xiantian internal strength in his dantian were about to lose control at this moment. Su Fang did this on purpose. Naturally, it was also the last important step of the blood qi condensation. It was to let the condensed essence qi and xiantian internal strength spread throughout the body and use the new energy to attack every part of the body, instantly expelling the low-level energy. Bang! Who would have thought that the moment he lost control, the energy and blood in his dantian would suddenly rush into his meridians, muscles, and blood? This spreading momentum was like an impact of 1,000 jin on Su Fang. His body shook, and he suddenly felt countless tearing forces sweeping through his body. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Countless blood-red streaks appeared on his skin. Black and dark bloodstains appeared on his skin. Even faint white smoke came out from the top of Su Fang's head. Blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes, nostrils, and mouth. Then, blood could be seen flowing through the meridians in his body at a very fast speed. Because of this, it also attacked most of his blocked and distorted meridians. This continued for half an hour. Su Fang was practically covered in blood. His face was pale, and his clenched fists slowly loosened at this moment. Then, the blood-red veins on the surface of his skin disappeared. Success! I, Su Fang, have finally succeeded in breaking through and entering the acquired realm. At this moment, Su Fang began to inspect his body. He felt that his body was filled with the essence qi and xiantian internal strength that he had painstakingly condensed. He had a new life force, and he also had a new xiantian internal strength. This proved that he was an ancient body refiner who had reached the acquired realm. I can't wait, I want to know how powerful my body is now. After simply wiping his body, he took the dry rations and water bottle and left the tomb. In the open space of the cliff, Su Fang rushed here and stared at the big stone in front of him. He gradually controlled the strength of his muscles, and he no longer felt any soreness and weakness. With a crackling sound, his arms swung, and his body actually vibrated. Bang! His right palm quickly and violently slapped the stone. With an ear-piercing sound of impact, his palm smashed the 1-foot-long, half-finger-thick stone into pieces. The fragments scattered and fell. It felt as if even the huge stone was shaking. Amazing! I am only in the acquired realm, and the strength of my ordinary body is actually so powerful. It seems that the acquired realm has reached the 5th or 6th level of qi eating. My current strength has already surpassed the peak of the 5th level of qi eating a year ago. Su Fang immediately looked at the vast sky and shouted excitedly, I, Su Fang, am not trash, I finally succeeded. After venting for a while, he thought of xiantian internal strength. The reason why ancient body refiners were not easy to cultivate and were powerful was because they had xiantian internal strength. Xiantian internal strength was completely different from the qi obtained from qi-eating realm. The qi-eater state was to absorb qi from nature through internal cultivation of qi-eater. The xiantian internal strength possessed by body refiners was purely the life force cultivated by the physical body. God-vanquishing fist. He gradually calmed down and used his muscles to circulate the rare xiantian internal strength in his body. Then, it flowed into his right arm from the muscle layer instead of the meridians. Buzz buzz, there was a weak aura gushing out of his right fist from his fingers and arms. Wha-bang! The god-vanquishing fist, like a ferocious beast snatching food, hit the big stone domineeringly. This punch did not shatter any stones. However, the huge stone in front of him actually shook back and forth. It was forcefully shaken by Su Fang's strength. So strong. He never expected xiantian internal strength to be so powerful. Could it be that ancient body refiners were all so powerful? The power brought by xiantian internal strength has long surpassed the 5th level of qi-eating realm. I'm afraid it has reached the 6th level of qi-eating realm, or even the 7th level. It's too terrifying. Then, after the acquired realm, the power of the mortal realm can reach the 8th or 9th level of qi-eating realm. How powerful is the perfection realm? Su Fang was surprised and happy. In the past 6 months, he cultivated the 100 Orifices bloodline. Not to mention every day, he was in a torment that was worse than death all the time. Many times he wanted to give up, many times he silently endured. The result finally made Su Fang feel gratified. He returned to the tomb temple, soaked in the medicine vat, and began to study the acquired realm. In other words, blood essence qi. Simply put, blood essence qi is to have a higher level of blood essence qi than the innate realm, and to transform xiantian internal strength into acquired internal strength. Once he reaches the acquired internal strength, his strength will be several times stronger than it is now. Blood essence qi is also called refining essence qi. The pursuit of excellence, tempering the physical strength, blood essence power, and xiantian internal strength to a new height. Refining essence qi according to the 100 Orifices bloodline, this was a process that ancient body refiners and ancient cultivators had to go through. It seems that the most effective cultivation method to step into the acquired realm is the 100 Orifices finger technique. Cultivating the physical body by numbing the body has the best effect. After studying for a while, Su Fang had a rough idea of cultivation in his mind. After 5 months of cultivation in the innate realm, he was already an ancient body refiner. There were many ways to cultivate in the future, but he didn't have much time. He only gave himself 3 years. If he couldn't reach the perfection realm in 3 years and change his fate, then he would be willing to accept his fate and give up on the path of cultivation. I'll have a good rest tonight. Tomorrow I'll start a new journey of acquired realm cultivation. With a tenacious gaze, he will also move forward bravely in the coming days. Chapter 10. He had a good night's rest. Su Fang climbed out of the medicine vat early in the morning. After washing up, he took some food and left the graveyard. Unknowingly, the mountain started to get cold. It seemed that it was early winter. Fortunately, Su Fang had reached the acquired realm, or else he would be shivering from the cold. Using the 100 acupoints finger art, he sealed the blood vessels in his arms and legs. Then, he didn't use his ordinary strength, but rather the astonishing physical strength of the Hotian realm. He struck out with the god-vanquishing fist, as well as a series of leg technique. After several months of cultivation in the innate realm, he seemed to have gotten used to this kind of heaven-defying physical body cultivation. However, it still caused him pain. After a while of cultivation, his arms and legs started to swell. He could only rest until noon before continuing his cultivation. The sound of the collisions caused by the cultivation of the physical body at the Hotian level reverberated in the cliffs, causing the ground to tremble. This was the effect of strength that the Xiantian level could not achieve. There were many advantages to cultivating bitterly. For example, his body had gotten used to this kind of high intensity. His body also had innate inner strength and purer blood essence. Another advantage was that he could do it with ease. After all, he was cultivating repeatedly. He could control his strength and timing perfectly. In the blink of an eye, the mountain became even colder. Strong winds howled in the forest all day long. While cultivating bitterly, Su Fang did not forget to clean the graveyard. After the fall, the graveyard was covered with a large amount of decaying leaves. In addition to the barren forest, it felt as if the world had withered. Half a year Su Fang had been on the mountain for half a year. Whether it was his figure or his appearance, there were obvious changes. Now, he had the body of an adult. The outline of his face was more distinct, and his eyes were dark and deep. Looking at his back, one would definitely think that he was a youth or an adult. 3 scars. Thanks to you, I was able to persevere until today. After spending 2 days cleaning up the graveyard, Su Fang stood in front of his parents' graves. Although he was sad, he did not shed any tears. Suddenly, a large number of startled birds flew out from the surrounding forest and the peak of the mountain. Su Fang noticed that something was wrong. The birds were obviously startled. What's wrong? He looked at the surrounding forest. Some wild beasts might have appeared. However, after waiting for a while, he did not hear any movement. There were only more startled birds flying in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. However, just as Su Fang was about to leave, his vision suddenly swayed. Then, as if the ground beneath his feet was collapsing, he instantly lost his balance. In front of him, the entire mountain was shaking violently from left to right. Earthquake! Su Fang finally realized what had happened and immediately lay down on the ground. The tombs in front of him were shaking, and the forests were shaking violently. It was as if the Violet Qi Mountain, and even the entire Tianzong city, were about to collapse in an instant due to the force of the earthquake. After 10 breaths of time, the tremors gradually weakened, and then completely disappeared. Su Fang slowly stood up and found that there were no changes to his surroundings. However, a few large rocks rolled down from the peak of the mountain. Not only did they destroy many trees, but a few large rocks also rolled down into the cemetery. Fortunately, they did not damage the mausoleum. He sighed. It was a false alarm. He had experienced many earthquakes since he was young, but none of them were as shocking as this. Then, he returned to the temple. When they arrived at the front of the tombstone, they saw that most of the walls on both sides had collapsed. There were also 2 falling rocks that hit the tombstone. Fortunately, the tombstone stood firm. I can't deal with the large rocks in the cemetery for now, but I still have to clean up the area around the tombstone. Thinking that the tombstone was the resting place of the family Su's ancestors, he gave up on cultivating and brought his tools to the back of the tombstone. Buzz! However, just as he arrived and was about to take action against the collapsed walls, a mysterious force seemed to seep out from his right hand when his right hand was close to the ground, causing his right hand to shake slightly. What a familiar feeling! Last time, when the ancient mirror appeared under the small lake, it was also because my right hand moved. Could there be some kind of treasure here? In a split second, Su Fang was stunned. He suddenly had this thought. Treasure. What kind of treasure is there around here? Because the same thing happened to his right hand last time, he found the mysterious ancient mirror. He purposely moved his right hand away, but his right hand slowly stopped moving. When he slowly moved closer, his right hand felt something. Thus, he did not hesitate and slowly moved his right hand closer to the ground. There were fragments, rocks, and an unknown substance everywhere. The movement of his right hand was very obvious. He walked over and suddenly saw a fragment. This fragment was lying quietly among the rocks. If it was not for his right hand, no one would have noticed it. Su Fang picked up the fragment with his left hand. Sure enough, the movement of his right hand was more obvious. The further away from his right hand, the weaker the movement. This fragment is a treasure. He was skeptical. He rubbed the fragment and found something different. The fragment was not an ordinary substance. It was a piece of bronze. It seemed to have been broken from a round substance. It was only the size of a child's palm. On the fragment there were some obvious black lines. He did not know how long the fragment had been buried, but it was still clearly visible. Even if it is a treasure, how can I find its secret? He shook his head helplessly. A treasure was a treasure, but if he could not find its secret, it was useless. He casually threw the fragment up and grabbed it with his right hand. At this moment, an unexpected scene happened. Just as his right hand was about to grab the shard, a faint purple light suddenly surged out of his little arm. The shard whooshed and stuck to the purple light released by his little arm. Su Fang was baffled. He was so frightened that he could not react. Just what is the origin of that purple light that entered my right hand? Why does it have the ability to discover treasures? Su Fang hastily stared at the fragment stuck to his right arm. He originally wanted to take the fragment away, but who would have thought that the fragment would move? The bronze fragment began to sway and shake. The dirt and sand on its surface fell off layer by layer. A green light surged out of the fragment. This light was absorbed by the purple light and entered his right arm. Fortunately, there were no abnormalities, such as discomfort. Su Fang actually felt that absorbing the green light from the fragment made his right arm feel light. It was as if he was enjoying the ethereal feeling of absorbing the fragment. At the same time, he noticed that the bronze fragment's color was changing. From bronze to white, the black lines on its surface were disappearing. This continued for 2 hours. Creak the fragment turned white, just like an ordinary stone. Before Su Fang could examine it carefully, It had completely turned into tiny fragments. The purple light on his right hand also slightly disappeared and returned to normal. At this moment, he felt that his hand was his. When he was absorbing the bronze fragment's energy, his right hand did not belong to him at all. He picked up the fragments of the fragment again. There was nothing special about them, but they were very brittle. With a little force, they turned into powder. It seems that the purple light that entered my right hand was not a ghost. It can sense treasures and absorb their energy. He looked at his right hand with joy. Unfortunately, he could not see anything special about it. However, he felt that his right hand had obviously gained some weight. Since there were treasures here, there should be treasures in other places as well. He deliberately lowered his right hand and walked around the tomb. In the end, there was nothing. Isn't luck every day? He could only laugh helplessly. Then, he began to shovel away the gravel and dirt. The next day, he finally cleaned up the surroundings. He was so tired that he returned to the medicine vat to continue soaking. The next day, when he came to the cliff, he noticed that many boulders had rolled down the cliff. The cliff had become even steeper, almost forming a 90-degree angle. It was also a few hundred meters high. It was truly spectacular. Oh, this cliff is not bad. It is the best natural environment to cultivate the divine touch gate. He originally wanted to continue cultivating, but when he saw the cliff, he suddenly turned and left. He found a large number of ropes in the tomb. These were all necessities. The tomb needed to rest all year round, so many ropes were prepared. He carried the big bundle of ropes to the cliff. After pondering for a while, he carried the ropes from the right side of the forest and climbed up the mountain. After 2 hours, he arrived at the right side of the cliff. He was still a few hundred meters away from the top of the cliff. He was worried that there was not enough rope, so he chose a lower position. Next, he tied the ropes to the ends and let them down the cliff. When the rope fell to the ground a few hundred meters below, he connected another section of the rope. He immediately went to the back and wrapped a section of the rope around 2 rocks. He pulled hard. It was no problem for it to bear the weight of a few hundred kilograms. Then, he returned to the bottom of the cliff and looked up. The rope was a few hundred meters high. At this height, he could begin to cultivate and climb. This was so that he could climb the divine touch gate in the future. In the future, I will cultivate the 100 apertures bloodline in the morning and climb in the afternoon. He looked at the sky. It was already afternoon. He came to the rope and wrapped it around his waist. Then, he pulled hard. When the rope did not loosen, he took off his shoes and climbed up barefoot. When he placed his hands on the rocks, he immediately felt the coldness. He then looked for something to borrow strength from. To practice climbing, the first thing was strength. Strength was the strength of the arms, legs, body, as well as endurance and perseverance. Next was flexibility. If one did not have perfect coordination when climbing, it would be impossible to succeed. To achieve these 2 points, one would need the endurance and perseverance of an ordinary person. This was the strength of the heart. It brought about perseverance and fearlessness. Only then could one reach the peak. He began to grab some protruding rocks and looked for places where his feet could rest. Some were only insignificant stone marks, but he had to use his toes or fingers to grab them tightly and become the center of gravity of his strength. I finally have the feeling of climbing the vine pillars when I was in the martial hall. When he reached the cantilever a few dozen meters high, Su Fong was not tired at all. Instead, he was smiling. This was because he had finally found the state and confidence of the past. He wiped his sweat and carefully looked for a bearing point. He climbed up bit by bit. Gradually, he felt his fingers, toes, and knees go numb and lose feeling. Because the stone surface was too cold, his joints and skin would naturally lose their warmth if he stayed there for too long. That's it for today. After climbing more than 300 meters, Su Fong saw that dusk was coming. He had to go back and soak in the water. So, he slowly urged his blood essence to move slowly in his joints and muscles. This way, the numb parts began to regain feeling. He immediately grabbed the rope and slid down the cliff to the ground. If Su Fang wanted to enter Tianmen province, there were only two possibilities. One was to wait 3 years for another opportunity to take the test. The second was to rely on himself and touch the gate of heaven. And he hoped that in 1 or 2 years, he would be able to reach the great perfection of his body. After successfully changing his fate, he would be able to pass the gate of heaven and enter Tianmen province to cultivate in less than 3 years. He brought the things back to the tomb and ate some things. His body gradually returned to normal, but the skin on his fingers and toes was still abraded. He took out something shiny from his bag and put it into the medicine vat to soak. Chapter 11. After entering the medicine vat, Su Fang carefully opened his palm. It was a small golden scroll. It turned out to be the treasure he found under the man's corpse when he met the mysterious woman. I wonder what kind of treasure this is. Was it worth it to die under the woman's sword for it? Half a year passed. Su Fang could finally take out the small golden scroll to take a look. He believed that the woman would not appear in the small purple cloud mountain again. This was also the first time he carefully looked at the small golden scroll. It was about the length of a finger and the thickness of a chopstick. Other than the faint golden light and some mysterious golden patterns on its surface, he could not see anything else. If it's a treasure, my right hand should be able to sense it. Suddenly, he thought of his right arm. He brought the small golden scroll close to his arm, but his right arm did not react for a long time. Could it be that this small golden scroll is not a treasure? Any treasure would have power. This was Su Fang's understanding. Since his right hand had 2 strange movements and 2 treasures appeared, then it had the ability to sense treasures. Now, it seemed that this small golden scroll was not a treasure at all. But this was unexplainable. When I go to Tianmen province in the future and become a real cultivator, I will use my magical power to unlock it. I will naturally be able to see if it is a treasure or not. Unknowingly, it was late at night. His body gradually relaxed and he gradually fell asleep. When the sky just brightened, Su Fang left the medicine vat on time. What's going on? The temperature in the room seems to be much higher than yesterday. Could it be because of the stove? It was winter. Although he was a martial artist, when he came out of the hot water early in the morning, there would still be water vapor and then a burst of coldness. However, he did not feel anything this morning. It was very strange. He went to the stove to take a look. The charcoal fire was still burning. Forget it. Su Fang did not think too much about it. He took the opportunity to prepare something delicious. He heated it up in a pot, dry food, bacon, and wild fruit. When he opened the door of the tomb, what welcomed him was not a cold wind, but a wave of heat. What's going on? Su Fang wanted to shrink his neck in the cold as usual in the morning, but in the end it was hot air. He went outside to take a look and was stunned. After one night, it was as if winter had disappeared just like that. There was no cold air at all. Whether it was the temperature or the wind, it was as hot as summer. Some small hibernating animals actually crawled out of the soil and lazily stretched their bodies. It can't be that I dreamt or slept through a season, right? After staring blankly for a full hour, he still couldn't figure out the reason, so he returned to the bottom of the cliff and began to cultivate. The stone is so cold, but the temperature in the air is rising. It seems that the weather changed overnight. After Su Fang performed the 100 acupoints finger technique, he hit the stone with his hands and legs. He could clearly feel the cold air coming from the stone. There was a huge earthquake during that time and the temperature suddenly rose today. Could it be that God is also angry? Shaking his head, he continued to cultivate. His hands collided with the boulders again, and his feet were also constantly kicking. The cliff once again gave rise to the familiar sound of hitting. However, the excruciating pain still persisted. Due to the sealing of his bloodline, it didn't take long for his hands and legs to swell up as if they were on fire. Only at noon did he stop. When he undid the acupoints, his limbs immediately felt as if they were no longer his own. Throbbing pain, stabbing pain, and burning pain began again. After resting for 2 hours and eating his dry rations, he endured the pain and went to the cliff. He wrapped a rope around his body and continued to cultivate and climb. Fortunately, the stone wall was no longer cold in the afternoon. It was just that the pain from the morning's cultivation made it very difficult for him to climb. After climbing 10 feet, he was so tired that he didn't want to move anymore. He could only grit his teeth and persevere. If he didn't continue cultivating, how was he going to climb the legendary divine touch gate in the future? Moving forward a little bit more was like his final perseverance. Because of this, it was dusk in a blink of an eye. Su Fang looked back and saw that he had only climbed about 20 feet. It was obvious that the hard cultivation in the morning affected the height of his climb. Even an adult wouldn't be able to withstand such a high load of cultivation. When he returned to the ground, he felt as if his body wasn't his anymore. After lying down for a while, he finally regained some feeling and limped back to the tomb. Fortunately, he had the medicinal vat. Otherwise, forget about recovering, even the pain wouldn't have been reduced by much. The family Su isn't a big family. I heard that the Lu family uses even more expensive medicinal herbs to soak their seedlings. After his body recovered, the sky was bright in the blink of an eye. He almost didn't close his eyes because the high-intensity cultivation yesterday was even more difficult than the innate realm. After eating breakfast, he returned to the bottom of the cliff and started cultivating again. The temperature today was like summer, which made it convenient for him to continue cultivating. Su Fang clenched his teeth and repeated the cultivation day after day. Once he persevered, an entire month had passed. On the cliff, in the scorching wind, Su Fang actually climbed up the cliff with the rope wrapped around him. He looked down and then looked at the sky. I have successfully reached the top. I have also reached the top earlier. Previously, it was dusk, and I reached the top 2 hours earlier. The change in a month was too obvious. Not only did Su Fang reach the top of the cliff, but he also seemed to be full of energy. A month ago, he couldn't even climb a few dozen feet. It has been a year. I have been on the mountain for a year. I believe that it won't be long before I reach the mortal realm. Su Fang grabbed the rope with both hands and ran on the cliff before sliding down to the ground. 16 years old. After a year of cultivation, Su Fang had also reached 16 years old. In 2 years, he would be an adult. 18 years old was also the last chance to cultivate. 13 to 15 years old was the golden cultivation period. 16 to 18 years old was the last chance. After 20 years old, it was almost impossible to become a cultivator by oneself. When he returned to the tomb, he saw that it would be dark soon. Seeing that the graveyard's large rocks were very eye-catching, he began to use the rope to wrap the large rocks, forcibly removing them from the graveyard. Buzz. Seeing that it was getting dark, Su Fang prepared to move the falling rock in front of him and then go back to soak in it. Suddenly, his right hand moved. Could it be? Su Fang immediately went behind the falling rock and found that there was a yellow fragment stuck to the surface of the falling rock. Treasure! There really is a treasure! He laughed and immediately took the yellow fragment off. Just as he was about to go back to study it, his right hand trembled slightly. Could it be that there is still a treasure? Su Fang was startled. Was he dreaming? Otherwise, how could there be a treasure? He immediately bent his body and approached some small falling rock. Sure enough, he found a fragment on one of the rocks. However, his right hand did not stop there. Could it be that his luck was so good that he found treasures one after another? Su Fong followed his senses and walked forward for another 10 feet. On top of a large rock, he found a white fragment. This white fragment was not simple because Su Fong could see that it was a broken part of a sword. It was 1 chi long and 2 fingers wide. He could clearly see the edges of the sword on both sides. This is a fragment of a magic treasure used by cultivators. At this moment, he looked at the 3 fragments in his left hand, especially the broken sword fragment. He thought of a magic treasure used by cultivators. His family Su also had a magic treasure. It was the falling moon saber that his father took away and lost. He heard that the falling moon saber's power could easily split a 3-meter-tall rock. Unfortunately, he had never seen a magic treasure with his own eyes. He also did not know how powerful the falling moon saber was. In Tianzong City, some clans would have a family treasure, which was a magic treasure. He heard that the strongest clan, the Lu clan, had several magic treasures. This was why the Lu clan was the strongest clan in Tianzong City. He quickly returned to the tomb and closed the door. After returning to the medicine vat, he began to carefully look at the 3 fragments. He stopped his right hand from getting close. Other than the white broken sword fragment, he could not tell what the other 2 fragments were. They were also only the size of a child's palm. Magic treasure fragments appeared one after another in Purple Chi Mountain, and they were scattered in different places. Could it be that, in a certain era, cultivators fought here? Otherwise, why would there be so many magic treasure fragments? After studying for a while, he did not find anything. However, many thoughts and doubts appeared in his mind. Why would there be so many magic treasure fragments in Purple Chi Mountain? If cultivators did not fight here, why would there be so many fragments? It seems like I have to be more careful in the future. Since 4 magic treasure fragments appeared one after another, it means that there are more magic treasure fragments in Purple Chi Mountain. The power of magic treasure is the power of cultivators. After my right hand absorbs it, it will definitely possess the mysterious power of cultivators. Su Fong's mind worked very quickly. He immediately prepared to let his right hand absorb the 3 magic treasure fragments. However, when Su Fong saw the broken sword fragment, he suddenly decided to keep it. Since it is a magic treasure fragment, I can use it as a weapon. I will try it out tomorrow. It turned out that he wanted to keep the broken sword fragment as a weapon. Buzz buzz. When he brought the other 2 fragments closer to his right hand, his small arm released a faint purple light again. He immediately absorbed the mysterious spiritual light from the 2 fragments. Su Fong felt lightheaded again, especially when the power in his body was not mainly in his dantian, but in his right arm. Fortunately, after a series of fortuitous encounters and more than a year of hard work, he was already used to such things. On the 2nd day, he ate breakfast early because he wanted to know the power of magic treasure fragment. Compared to ordinary weapons, whose power was more extraordinary, carrying a treasure sword, he quickly arrived at the withered forest in front of the cliff. He saw a big tree that needed one person to hug. He raised the ordinary treasure sword in his hand and slashed at the tree trunk with ordinary strength. With a crackling sound, the treasure sword slashed into the tree trunk forcefully half a foot deep. This was ordinary strength. It was already very frightening without activating his innate strength and physical strength. Even a strong mortal would not be able to slash such a deep distance. He took a step back and grabbed the broken sword fragment tightly with his right hand. Because his right arm was shaking slightly, it seemed like he wanted to absorb all the power in the broken sword fragment. Hula! The white fragment flashed towards the tree trunk. Crack! The white light hit the tree trunk and shattered it, creating a hole the size of a fist. Clang! The broken sword fragment flew back quickly and hit a nearby rock before stopping. The broken sword fragment pierced a finger deep into the rock. Creak, whoosh! When he pulled out the broken sword fragment, The big tree behind him that was hit by the sword fragment immediately started to break from the hole. It fell to the right and raised a wave of dust. Powerful. The power is already extremely frightening when shot with ordinary strength. If I shoot with acquired strength, wouldn't it be even more frightening? Su Fang's eyes widened. He did not expect the sword fragment to be so powerful. However, when he took a closer look at the sword fragment, he became depressed. The sword fragment actually had some small cracks. What did this mean? The broken sword fragment could only be used a few times before it would completely shatter. I have to save this sword fragment for when I need to save my life. Suddenly, he felt that the sword fragment in his hand could help him escape danger in the future. Putting away the sword fragment, he immediately returned to the cliff and began to cultivate again. Author's words. Update Day 4. Chapter 12. In the blink of an eye, several months passed. The temperature in the stone house suddenly dropped. Su Fang, who was soaking in the medicine vat, couldn't help but shiver. It's suddenly cold again. Ever since the temperature changed overnight, the past few months seemed to have been spent in summer. But now, the temperature suddenly dropped again. Could it be that they had returned to winter? Soon, dawn arrived. When Su Fang was ready to open the door, a cold wind blew in his face. When he looked at the sky, he saw that it was snowing heavily. It should be early summer now. Why is it winter again? God's temper is too bad. If this continues, the 4 seasons will be reversed. The ground was soon covered in a layer of snow. No animals could be seen. Even the graves were soon covered in snow. After several months of hard work in the postnatal realm, my body is almost done. Since I've put in so much blood, I'll start transforming my blood essence into qi and prepare to break through to the mortal realm. After this period of cultivation, he had reached the peak of the postnatal realm and could start transforming his essence into qi. Transforming essence into qi required him to sit down and cultivate. Su Fang closed the door and went back to the stone house. He added a few more pieces of charcoal to the stove. At this time, he could hear the howling of the cold wind from the window. The process of transforming essence blood into qi in the postnatal realm is similar to that in the Xiantian realm. By activating all the blood in the body and fusing it with the Xiantian inner strength, I can raise the Xiantian inner strength to the postnatal inner strength. The essence blood will also become stronger. He carefully studied the later stages of the postnatal realm in order to cultivate qi. The later stages of the postnatal realm did not require him to cultivate his body. Instead, he began to cultivate his blood essence and inner strength. After a year and a half of hard work, he could almost control his arms, legs, and most of the flesh in his body. Therefore, it was much easier to cultivate than in the Xiantian realm. The blood in his body slowly flowed into his dantian from the muscle layer he controlled. Ordinary qi-eating cultivators used their meridians to circulate their qi. However, the 100 Orifices bloodline was different. They directly used their muscles to circulate their inner strength and blood, abandoning their meridians. This kind of cultivation was thousands of times more difficult than ordinary body cultivators. The body's muscles were like clothes. In the eyes of cultivators, they were the placenta. The placenta was also blood and meridians. The human body was made up of blood and meridians. After peeling off the placenta, all that was left was the body that cultivators pursued. Zzz. After a few days of slow control, the Xiantian inner strength passed through his muscles and entered his dantian. When it fused with the blood essence qi that was condensed in the Xiantian realm, the sound of friction could be heard. This feeling was as if the energy was a wild horse that Su Fang could not control. A few days later, after a long period of accumulation, his blood and qi finally began to fuse with his Xiantian internal strength, allowing Su Fang to begin his cultivation of the late stage of the Hotian realm. transmuting energy into qi. There were many impure energies and impurities in the body. The Hotian stage was to expel or merge these impurities and finally reach the mortal saint stage. In other words, it was the third realm of the physical body, the mortal realm. This was the cultivation process of ancient body cultivators. They created the precedent of human cultivation. Without the reference of civilization, they could only study their own bodies and finally find the secret to break the shackles in their bodies. You can enter the medicine vat now, and the medicinal power will continue to transform your blood essence into qi. Now that he had stepped into the late Hotian realm, Su Fang was able to relax. What he needed to do now was to continue cultivating. After a long period of time, when his inner strength reached the Hotian realm, he could begin to attack the mortal realm. With the medicinal efficacy, it would bring great benefits to one's cultivation. Bang, bang, bang! Suddenly, there seemed to be some movement in the hall. Su Fang slowly opened his eyes and heard a few knocks on the door. Could it be that the coachman brought me something? I was so focused on cultivation that I forgot about everything else. He got up, put on his clothes, and went to the hall to unbolt the door. Clang, clang! But before he could open the door, a strong force pushed the door open. Then, a group of shivering snowmen rushed in. Su Xiaolong! Su Fang was startled. He looked at the snowmen and realized that they were not the coachman, but Su Xiaolong, who had repeatedly targeted him. He looked at the others and realized that they were all around his age, or a few years younger than him. Before he could understand what was going on, more than 10 youths rushed in from outside. Looking at the 20 youths he knew and their sorry state, he immediately asked, "Why are you not cultivating in the martial hall? What are you doing here in the snow?" Su Fang. One of the youths was purple from the cold. Su Fang looked at the youth and was slightly startled. Su Yi. It turned out that this youth named Su Yi was the family Su's instructor, Su Junyan's son. Uncle Yen was not only the family Su's instructor, but also one of the managers of the family Su. His position was second only to the clan leader Su Ting, so Su Fang didn't understand why Su Yi was also on the mountain. For a full 3 breaths, the youths couldn't catch their breath. On one hand they were freezing, and on the other hand they were exhausted from climbing the mountain. Su Yi hurriedly let everyone into the hall and nodded at Su Fang, locking the door together. The others immediately felt the warmth and rushed into the stone house on the right. Su Fang. Su Yi couldn't be bothered to warm himself up. His voice was filled with urgency as he said in a trembling voice, "This morning, we were practicing in the martial hall when my father suddenly appeared. He said that the Wu clan had suddenly declared war on our Su clan, so he hurriedly told us to go to the ancestral hall to take shelter. The Wu family declared war on the family Su was too sudden. I don't know if they fought or not, but my father wouldn't joke about this kind of thing. He told us to hide in the ancestral hall for a while, and then go back to take a look. You don't know either. Let's go in and warm up. Eat something first." It seemed that something big had happened in the clan, or else Su Junyan wouldn't have let the youths go up the mountain to hide. The 2 of them entered the stone house. Su Xiaolong and the others gathered around the stove. The snowflakes on their bodies had melted and were emitting white smoke. Su Fang hurriedly took out some old clothes for them and also took out the stored dry rations. Everyone wolfed down the food in big mouthfuls. The family Su's morning practice usually started before dawn. At this time, the sky had just brightened. They spent more than 2 hours to reach the ancestral hall in the heavy snow, so they were naturally tired and thirsty. I hope the 2 families don't start a war, or else grandfather will be in danger. Su Fang stood at the side. Seeing that the others were gradually recovering, he felt very uneasy. "Su Fang, we were wrong the last time." Su Xiaolong suddenly took the initiative to apologize to Su Fang with the other 2 youths. "I forgot about it long ago. Everyone, rest well. If you really feel uncomfortable, soak yourself in some medicinal water. Also, I don't have much dry food left. I have to go out and hunt some wild animals. Su Fong took down his sword and carried a big cloth bag. After informing everyone, he left the ancestral hall alone. When he came to the world of ice and snow, he didn't feel cold at all. What was wrong with the heavens? He was also worried about his clan. He went to the forest, picked up a stone, and began to look for animals. In the afternoon, Su Fong carried the cloth bag back to the ancestral hall. We ate everything. There were too many people, so there wasn't enough to eat. Su Fong, do you have any dry food left? In the end, the 20 youths who were still in their growth stage only needed 2 meals to finish half a month's worth of food for Su Fongda. Moreover, the room was in a mess. A few youths were playing with the wooden frame that he used to practice martial arts. I hunted a wild boar. I've already washed it. You can do it yourselves. Seeing that these youths were not worried about their clan, Su Fong couldn't raise his spirits. He took out the wild boar meat and put it aside. Then, he carried his sword and left the ancestral hall. He went to the forest and saw many big trees. Then, he swung his strong and powerful fist. In just 2 punches, he knocked down a withered tree. Then, he used his sword to split open the tree trunk and built a simple wooden shed in the open space. He used it to block the wind and snow and started a fire inside. Although the wooden shed was simple, the space was not bad. At least it was quiet. After doing all this, he finally hunted a wild chicken and roasted it on the wooden frame. Then, he sat down cross-legged and continued to cultivate qi. The next day, he left the wooden shed again. In just 1 or 2 days, snow covered Purple Qi Mountain. Su Fong finally hunted a wild deer. He kept some for himself and carried it back to the ancestral hall. Su Xiaolong, Su Yi, and the rest of the youths were lying on the bed around the fire. The room was hot and sweaty, and some bones were scattered everywhere. Food is here. Seeing Su Fong appear and take out the wild deer meat, the sleeping youths all jumped up. Without waiting for Su Fong to do anything, they began to move by themselves. They took down the medicine jar and put it in the big pot. Su Fong also quietly left and told them not to worry about food. Just like that, a month passed. Every day, Su Fong would hunt some game for them. Sometimes, he even had to go deep into the mountains because the animals near Tianzong City were either hunted or scared away by him. Because he had to find food for everyone, his cultivation was affected. In this month, he finally reached the peak of the Hotian realm, but he didn't have the time or energy to break through. Breaking through would take a few days. If they didn't eat for a few days, then the family Su youths would starve to death. How come you have food? On this day, Su Fong finally hunted a dozen wild chickens and brought them back to the ancestral hall. As a result, when he entered the ancestral hall, he found it strange that everyone was eating and drinking. Su Fong. Sui walked over. It was sent by 2 coachmen. Su Fong patted his head. I see. That's not bad. They should have come to the mountain half a month ago to send me things. Why didn't they say anything about our family Su's situation? They did. Su Yi put down the bacon in his hand. Did the 2 families really start a war? On the day we came to the mountain, the Wu family brought people to attack our family Su's territory. The 2 sides officially started a war. As a result, our family Su's territory was occupied by the Wu family half a month ago. What? These words hit Su Fong like a bolt from the blue. What, Su Fong? It's all because of your father. If your father hadn't lost the family Su's divine weapon that year, our family Su would have been able to defeat the Wu family. Yes, the falling moon blade is a magic weapon. This time, the Wu family relied on the loss of their divine weapon to defeat all the experts of our family Su. This is all because of your father. Tianzong City has always said that once the divine weapon is lost, the family will be exterminated. In the end, he never expected that the other youths would rush over. Before Su Fong could react, They all pointed at Su Fang and began to criticize him. In their eyes, the reason why the family Su suffered such a great calamity was because the family treasure, the falling moonblade, was lost. The family Su's divine weapon was the family treasure. It was also lost by Su Fang's father outside, causing the family Su to be punished. Su Fang, don't think that we should be grateful to you and treat you as one of us just because you gave us something to eat. If anything happens to my parents, I will definitely not let you off. He's a jinx. Everyone ignored Su Fang's feelings. In an instant, Su Fang became their enemy. Chapter 13. Stop talking, let's wait and see. Su Yi suddenly turned around and stopped everyone from continuing to attack Su Fang. Su Fang, on the other hand, was silent. He had been silent since the beginning. He suddenly looked at the 3 scars on his arm. If it was a year ago, he would have hesitated, but now he must become a cultivator and retrieve the family's divine weapon, the falling moonblade. He can't let his father die with grievances and bear infamy after death. Surround this place. Unexpectedly, when the family Su youths were fighting among themselves, a cold roar suddenly came from outside the tomb. The youths were shocked. Who's here? Su Yi thought for a moment and clenched his fists. He stared at everyone. Maybe it's the Wu family who came here to get rid of us. All the youths were scared to death. They thought they would be safe in the tomb and would be taken down by the family Su after a while. But now their family didn't come, instead the enemy came. Su Xiaolong and the others immediately surrounded them, no longer paying attention to Su Fang, who was silent on the side. They centered around Su Yi. You have the highest cultivation here, level 4 of Qi eating. A year ago you could have entered Tianmen province. What should we do? Su Yi was the oldest here and also the tallest. It seems that the Wu family has already attacked our family. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent people to destroy our tomb and hunt us down. As long as there are no powerful martial artists, we can deal with ordinary family members with our own strength. Everyone, find weapons immediately, they will definitely attack. Whoosh whoosh, everyone immediately spread out and looked for all kinds of weapons that could be used. Fortunately, there were many weapons here, as well as tools like shovels. Boom! Unexpectedly, several figures flashed in through the window. Suddenly, there was an evil laughter like that of the Grim Reaper. Don't let the family Su bastards leave here alive. Cut the grass and pull out the root. Kill. Su Yi, Su Xiaolong, and the other youths, although martial artists, had never encountered such a situation. Life and death were imminent. Everyone was trembling as they surrounded the black-clothed men. Clang clang, suddenly, there was the sound of metal clashing. The masters of the Wu family brandished their machetes one by one. Although they were not Qi-eater warriors, they were all trained in martial arts. Moreover, they were adult. Even without Qi refining, their physical strength was stronger than the family Su boys. Fortunately, the family Su youths had been doing morning exercises since they were young. When faced with a life-and-death situation, each and every one of them was extremely alert. Bang! The 2 sides were locked in a stalemate in the small room. At this moment, the door to the tomb was smashed open and the Wu family's men rushed in. Ah! Suddenly, a scream came from the tomb. Su Fang suddenly came back to his senses. He looked forward and saw a youth's chest being lifted up by a Wu family expert with a large saber, cleaving the youth into 2 halves. Damn it! Su Yi suddenly flashed out. As expected of a 4th stage of Qi eating, 4 waves of Qi turned into palms. His speed was fast and instantly hit the chest of the black-clothed man, killing him with 1 palm. Kill! The other youths also released their energy. Cultivation seedlings aren't easy to deal with, but we've already made preparations. Archers. A cold voice came from the hall. Yes, head butler. It turned out that the other party was a high-ranking steward of the Wu family. Crossbow. At this moment, the youths were all scared witless. The power of the crossbow was too terrifying. It was the bane of normal martial artists. Everyone back off. In this moment of despair, even Su-yi was sweating. But a person walked out from the corner. It was Su Fang. For some reason, the youths were all intimidated by Su Fang's cold aura and involuntarily gathered together. Only Su Fang and Su-yi were left side by side. Are you confident in dealing with the crossbows? Only a high-level chi-eating expert can deal with a dozen crossbows at the same time. How confident am I? Even if I'm not confident, I'll still fight with my life on the line. Su Fang was like a beast walking out of the darkness, his eyes filled with anger. Perhaps what he was angry about was not the Wu family, but everyone's criticism of him, especially his father's disrespect. In addition, he had let down his grandfather and uncle by training in the mountains behind their back. The emotions that had been suppressed since he failed to break through back then seemed about to explode at this moment. Su Fang is the son of the family Su's #1 expert, Su Yaotian. He used to be a good seedling and a threat to the Wu family. Now that he's a cripple, it's time to get rid of him. Shoot. A sinister-looking black-clothed old man in his 60s with a pair of sword-like eyebrows appeared behind the archers. This should be the head butler of the Wu family. Bang! At the same time, a thunderous explosion came from Su Fang's body as he rushed towards the archers. Steward Wu immediately ordered, "Kill a child." At this moment, as the arrows were shot one after another, all the youths in the family Su felt despair. Crackle crackle, but no one expected that a youth who was unable to cultivate would suddenly increase his speed by several times. Turning into a black shadow, he struck out with his palms. Facing the flying arrows, he was actually able to use his palms to directly collide with the arrows and break them in midair. Su Fang not only used his palms, he also used his legs, trying his best to change the direction of the arrows. How can Su Fang be so powerful? He's even more powerful than when he reached stage 5 of eating chi back then. I don't know, but we're saved. Su-yi, Su Xiaolong, and the other youths were dumbstruck. They felt that the genius from 2 years ago had suddenly returned to their line of sight. The steward and the other servants were also shocked. A youth was actually able to resist the archers. Steward Wu viciously shouted, "Don't give that kid a chance, shoot continuously." Xiu xiu xiu, the archers hurriedly shot arrows. Explode. Arrows were shot one after another. How could Su Fang deal with them by himself? But he also released his true strength. In an instant, he controlled the strength of his body and the internal strength in his dantian. Boom! In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, an unparalleled blood-colored aura suddenly exploded from Su Fang's body, shaking his clothes and his long hair. This aura was too shocking. It far surpassed that of a normal chi-eating realm martial artist. It directly shook away dozens of arrows that flew past Su Fang or were about to kill Su Fang. The family Su youths were originally in despair. But at this moment, they saw that tall, blood-red freak Su Fang save them once again. Chi-releasing aura. This was something that only an expert could do. The aura they released made a deafening sound that made everyone's scalp numb. And those arrows that were shaken away instead rolled towards the archers and the large men around the Wu family. The result was that, in just a moment, the arrows hit them. Steward Wu's head was also shaking. He immediately looked at the two youths beside him. "Damn it, Wu Dong, Wu Xianfeng, you're both stage 7 of eating chi, kill this kid." Stage 7 of eating chi. Su Fang slowly stared at the two youths. Right now he had completely released his Hotian inner strength. His muscles were throbbing and his body was filled with power. He had a feeling that he could tear people apart alive. It seems these two people once went to Tianmen province to cultivate. Otherwise, they wouldn't have reached stage 7 of eating chi and have the 7-layered waves. But their talent was ordinary, and they were expelled from Tianmen province. But in Tianzong City, they can be considered absolute experts. I'm going to defeat them. In an instant, Su Fang condensed his Hotian inner strength. Hotian inner strength was several times stronger than Xiantian inner strength. It was even more domineering. What a troublesome opponent. The Wu family's two experts walked out. Experts really were different. They gradually released their auras, and their black clothes began to flutter. 7 layers of qi waves were formed around their bodies. 7 layered waves, this was the power released by their cultivation. Windwalk Fist. One of the youths seemed to want to beat Su Fang down by himself, so he was a step faster. His arms released bursts of aura and he increased his speed. He punched out one fist after another as fast as lightning. If a normal person punched out once, this expert could punch out 10 times. This was the difference between a qi-eating realm cultivator and a mortal martial artist. I've been bitterly cultivating for over a year. It's time to test my result. Su Fang used the 7 wind eagle forms. Bang bang, the eagle claw and the lightning-fast fist began to exchange blows in the center of the hall. The fist art was like a willow leaf, while the eagle claw was domineering and powerful. The two of them exchanged dozens of blows in an instant. Qi, the youth's right arm, suddenly flashed with a bloody mist. Su Fang's eagle claw had torn out a large piece of flesh. It was so deep that bone could be seen. His right arm also seemed to have no strength. You can't cultivate. Why is your body's strength even greater than mine? The youth pressed down on his wound in shock. Wu Dong, let's deal with him together. The other youth also charged forward in shock. Heavenly Star Sword Art. He took out a sword from his waist. In an instant, he combined the energy in his body, and the sword actually released sword qi. Windwalk Fist. Wu Dong, who had no strength in his right arm, continued to use his left arm to attack. Void-breaking inner strength. In the face of 2 powerful experts, Su Fang only had 2 choices. One was to release the magical sword fragment he had hidden on his body, and the other was to go all out. He chose the second choice. His inner strength exploded out from his palms. Bang bang, he was no longer an ordinary cultivator. He was an ancient body refiner who had reached the peak of the Hotian realm. The power of his inner strength was unimaginable. At the same time, a wave of blood-colored energy spread out like a whirlpool and clashed with Wu Dong and Wu Xuanfeng's fist energy and sword qi. As a result, the 2 experts were sent flying by the inner strength of a body refiner and spurted out blood. Qi. What Su Fang hadn't expected was that he had overlooked another person. Steward Wu. For this person to be able to become a steward, not only did he have an astute mind, but he also had extraordinary methods. Otherwise, how could he control all the affairs of a large family? Just as Wu Dong and Wu Xianfeng were defeated by Su Fang, Steward Wu took out a dagger. Although his speed couldn't compare to the 2 experts, he wasn't much slower. Taking advantage of Su Fang's unprepared state, he stabbed his dagger at Su Fang's stomach. Despicable, you're asking for death. Su Fang's left hand grabbed onto something and threw it out. Steward Wu's head exploded with a bloody mist. His mouth was wide open, and he fell to the ground like a pea person, still holding onto the bloody dagger. Su Fang is injured. It's time for us to kill them. The family Su youths who had been in shock this entire time saw that Su Fang was injured. With Su Yi leading the charge, they all took out their weapons and charged at the Wu family guards who were either injured or trembling in fear. After Wu Dong and Wu Xianfeng fell to the ground, their bodies no longer had the strength to resist. Looking at the family Su youths, they crazily swung shovels and hoes at their heads and bodies. Those 2 pitiful experts had been showing off in Tianzong City, but in the end they had died at the hands of a group of youths. Su Fang took a step back and looked at the sword wound. Fortunately, it wasn't deep. He immediately found some medicinal powder and applied it to the wound. Although the blood was still flowing, it quickly stopped. We've captured 2 alive. After half an incense stick's worth of time, the tomb quieted down. Chapter 14. The family Su-Yus gradually gathered together, each holding a weapon. They even captured someone alive. Only these 2 are still alive. We checked, more than 20 people from the Wu family are not breathing. Kill them. Su Xiaolong's clothes were dyed red with blood. Don't kill them first, ask them about the situation first. Su Fang passed by and said with some difficulty, then continued to walk forward. That's true. Su Xiaolong patted his head. Su Yi came in front of the 2 Wu family servants, who were trembling in fear and looked like they were about to pee their pants. He raised his bloody sword and asked, "How did you know we were in the cemetery?" The 2 of them hurriedly kowtowed, scared out of their wits. "Don't kill us, we'll tell you everything. We tortured and forced the family Su people out of their mouth. Tortured and tortured." Hearing this, the youths were furious again. "What happened to our family Su now?" Su Yi asked angrily. That person said, "Family Su and family Su have been taken over by us. A few old family Su houses were also burned down by us. As for the family Su people, most of them were killed, but we didn't do it. We just came to deal with you." Bang! Su Xiaolong kicked that person's back, sending him sprawling on the ground. Su Yi asked again, "What did you do with the people who are still alive?" Another person kowtowed again and again. I heard that you were going to sell them to the mine and make them mine slaves for the rest of their lives." Su Yi interrogated again in front of everyone. The other youths were also concerned about their family members. Most of their parents were still alive, and some of them had died tragically. The sword shard is still in good condition. As long as you don't use too much strength, it shouldn't break easily. Su Fang took the sword shard from the wall, checked it, and put it away. Then he heard that his grandfather and uncle were fine, but they were going to be sold to the mine soon. Everyone knew what kind of place the mine was. Once they became mine slaves, they would be exhausted to death and would never be able to come out alive. I heard that the higher-ups of our Wu family want to sell all of your family Su people to the mine controlled by the Lu family. The 2 Wu family servants were tied up. Su Yi shouted, The Lu family didn't uphold justice. The Lu clan can't wait for all the clans to disappear," that person replied weakly. "What should we do? The Lu clan is too powerful. Even if all the clans were to combine, they still wouldn't be able to defeat the Lu clan." "That's right. If we really sell it to the Lu clan, we will have the contract as proof. If we try to save them, it will be equivalent to snatching the Lu clan's asset. At that time, the Lu clan will not allow us to save them. Our clan is actually going to become the slaves of the Lu clan." One by one, the youths lowered their heads. It was as if they had all grown up after experiencing this life and death calamity. Everyone looked at Su Yi, hoping that he would have a solution. "Save people. We have to save people." Su Yi suddenly looked at Su Fang and took the initiative to walk towards Su Fang. "You are the strongest, and you can fight against a stage 7 expert. You are the only one who can save our clansmen now." The other youths also walked up. They seemed to be ostracizing Su Fang, but Su Fang's strength was shocking. Moreover, only Su Fang could save their parent. Everyone quietly looked forward to Su Fang, and their gazes became more and more urgent. Under everyone's expectant gazes, Su Fang nodded. "It is my responsibility to save them, and of course it is also your responsibility. It is difficult for me to save them alone. We have to work together and become a rope. Then, we will immediately go down the mountain and break into the Wu clan overnight to save them." "Okay, then we will make a good plan and confirm the specific location of our clansmen." Everyone nodded. Then, under Su Yi's lead, everyone continued to ask the 2 Wu clan servants for more details. Late at night heavy snow was still falling from the sky, and the cold wind swept through Tianzong City. "Let's go." The closed city gate slowly opened a crack, and Su Fang let the family Su youths who were hiding outside in one by one. "Xiaolong, the four of you stay here and guard the city gate. On such a cold snowy day, no one will come to replace you." Everyone left Su Xiaolong and the other three at the city gate. The rest of the people quietly moved through the dark streets under the lead of Su Fang and Su Yi. After a while, they appeared on the streets that used to be controlled by family Su. Sure enough, it was now the Wu clan's property, and a few large houses had been turned into ruins. Everyone was in a bad mood, and they carefully approached the family Su Martial Hall. Because the survivors of the family Su were all locked up in the family Su Martial Hall. When Su Fang passed by the medicine store, Su Fang deliberately paid attention to it, only to find that the medicine store was already in ruins, and had long been robbed clean by the Wu clan. Su Yi brought a few youths and met up with Su Fang in the dark. "I counted. There are only 15 people patrolling tonight, and they are all ordinary Wu clan servants. Su Yi, you guys take care of these people. We will go to the Martial Hall. We must save them within an hour and leave Tianzong City. Otherwise, if the Wu clan finds out, we will be in trouble." "Okay." Everyone carried a strong desire to save them, and with the urgency to unite with their families, they began to move separately. Su Fang brought them across another street and finally saw the family Su Martial Hall. "I'll go open the door and take care of the guards. Wait for me to open the door, then you guys can come closer." He took out the broken sword shard and secretly channeled all the energy in his dantian to his right hand. Creak, through the gap, Su Fang saw the left window slightly open, revealing the youth's eyes. He opened the window about a foot high, then took out a crossbow and aimed at Wu Dazhang, who was sleeping on a chair. Looking at Wu Dazhang, he was indeed a powerful person. There were many scars on his body, and from his aura to his muscles, he emitted an aura of 10,000 pounds of strength. Although he was sleeping, Wu Dazhang still gave people a deterrent force. At the same time, the other youths also climbed up the wall and waited for the signal. Buzz, just as the crossbow was aimed at Wu Dazhang's temple, Wu Dazhang slightly opened his eyes. This person is powerful, to be able to detect it so quickly. Su Fang's heart almost stopped. Xiaoan arrow also burst out from the crossbow. Ping, just as the arrow was about to hit Wu Dazhang's temple, when he opened his eyes, the arrow actually stopped a foot away from him. Family Su remnant. Wu Dazhang took advantage of the situation and grabbed with his large hand. A palm chi like a large net grabbed towards the window. With a boom, the window shook open, and the youth was like a weak chicken that was caught by the palm chi and brought into the room. "You're courting death." Seeing the youth fall to the ground, Wu Dazhang pressed down with his palm. Whoosh! The youth was about to die under Wu Dazhang's terrifying palm and would probably be crushed into meat paste. At that moment, a white light suddenly flashed from behind. "There's still a remnant." Wu Dazhang's hearing and perception were beyond the common knowledge of ordinary people. He suddenly turned around and with a disdainful smile, his right palm grabbed at the white light. Pooh! Wu Dazhang thought that with his strength, he could easily suppress the white light like before, but this time he was wrong. The arrow was an ordinary weapon, but the white light was a fragment of a magic treasure. Moreover, it was an attack that Su Fang used all of his strength. The white light forcefully pierced through his right palm and then hit his chest, sending him flying until the white sword fragment broke through his body and hit a wooden pillar behind him. "You!" A command suddenly sounded in the martial hall. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The youths lying in ambush on the high wall shot out their crossbows. Bang! The door of the martial hall was also kicked open. Sui led a dozen youths and immediately charged in. When they saw the Wu family's experts, they immediately fired their crossbows. The family Su people who were curled up in the snow were also awakened by the abnormal commotion. When they woke up, they saw the family Su youths either rushing in from the main door or jumping down from the high wall. Su Junyan was locked together with Su Ting and other important people. He immediately recognized Su Yi and cried emotionally. Boom! The Wu family guards were shot to death one by one. They did not know what had happened. At the same time, at the main door of the martial hall, the main door was suddenly knocked down and a sturdy figure flew out along with the door. Such a commotion immediately attracted everyone's attention. Wu Dezhang. Many of the family Su people recognized Wu Dezhang, who was sent flying in a very sorry state. Everyone, save them first. The family Su youths gathered together and shot the last 2 Wu family guards to death. Everyone immediately began to rescue the trapped family Su people. PFFF. Wu Dezhang stood up with difficulty. There was a bloody hole the size of a child's fist on the left side of his chest. It was caused by Su Fang's inner strength and the sword fragment. Blood spurted out from the wound and his mouth. Wu Dezhang, you didn't expect this day to come, right? I heard that you slaughtered many of my family Su people. The family Su people who were still in shock saw a youth walk out. It was Su Fang. P.S. Thank you? 5000 gift pack from Svan 11 author's words. It's already the 5th day of the 9 Truths update, but I'm still immersed in writing miracles. Su Fang will slowly experience many twists and turns before finally finding his own cultivator's heart and truly becoming an immortal cultivator. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.